All right. Oh, hello. Good evening and welcome to the Stochastic.com MLB Deeper Dive. Little 12-game action here presented by Sleeper. I'm Dave Loughy, Loughy_D on the Twitters and on Threads, Adam. Joined by Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. What's good, brother?
2 more shows until the very, very long weekend.
I know. Little all-star break coming up. But we got today, we got a 12-gamer. What do you got? Strategy show tomorrow morning?
Yeah, strategy show tomorrow, and then I'm done. Nice day of baseball and MMA.
Nice. Yeah, I just knocked out a little fantasy football video. I love talking about that stuff even in July. I know you don't, like, you get into it later, but I knocked out a bunch of best ball drafts yesterday, digging into some super like late round flyer tight ends. What's better than that, man?
Yeah, no, I mean I'm already doing best ball. I enjoy that.
Jelani Woods, bro.
Yeah,
I love that guy. He's
like
free.
Him. Right. Yeah, there's so many you can take at the end. Trey McBride's been mine pretty often.
That's a good one. Cole McCoy might just all game with him.
It's like he has so many outs. Like Ertz is always hurt, and the Cardinals are gonna suck. So like,
and he's talented.
Right. Yeah, and he's talented. Like even if Ertz doesn't get hurt, like by the end of the year, it's probably just gonna be McBride anyway, because why not?
So Jelani Woods, though, man, he's 6'7", 265, and his athleticism score is so far off the charts that, like, on Player Profiler, they have him as on an athleticism score, the 10th most athletic tight end to ever come out of the draft.
Yeah, that's insane. The Colts,
he could just suck, and the team could be terrible.
Right, like the Colts could be terrible, but they also have such a high ceiling when you have like Richardson's talent and Woods' athleticism, and Pittman is good.
Yeah, and Jonathan Taylor, everyone's acting like he's just dead after last year. So it's fun. But you know what? With those guys like McBride and Woods, you can get them as really your last pick. Like if you're on DraftKings 20 rounds, probably like 18th or something, but you're paying zero for him, or you draft some guy that you know has zero untapped potential, zero ceiling, and you're just like, well, I guess this will do.
Right, exactly.
So we're here to talk baseball, but I'm excited for football. Check out our Stochastic Fantasy Football channel, too. Show us some love. We were dormant for a little while, so any of your support helps. Hit that thumbs up here, too. Subscribe to the channel. Happy to have you guys with us. Close out the week. Hopefully everyone's in a good mood right now, enjoying their day, looking forward to the weekend. But atone for your sins. Get us north of 50 likes out of the gate so we can get off to a good start. We got 12 games, man. You did the strategy show this morning. As far as like pitching goes, hitting goes, stacks go, you and I have seen some weird slates recently, just with like real top heavy pitching or a few top heavy stacks. And then other slates where it's like 3 pitchers getting ownership and then every other stack is just complete flat ownership. What are we seeing today to kick this show off?
There's a lot of good pitching. There's a lot of pretty good hitting spots. And then there is the Red Sox, who are cheap, have a 6.5 implied run total. It's almost like a Coors Field game with just how much better they looked and everything else. So it's a pretty weird slate where you have that one team pulling a ton of ownership. Then you have a bunch of other teams that look pretty similar. A lot of different, pretty good pitchers you can get to. Not a lot on the cheap end, but they're also not that expensive. The most expensive pitcher on DraftKings is $9,900. So should be able to build some lineups that look pretty good.
Nice. Shout out to you guys. North of 50 likes. Appreciate it. See, it's Friday. We're in good moods. Everyone's looking to do their part of the team. Chicago Cubs, New York Yankees, 8-run total here. Jameson Taillon, Carlos Rondon. He's back. How many lefties have the Yankees had in their rotation over the past few years? It always feels like they have very few left-handed pitchers.
Cortez. Yeah, it does.
Right? Like that's usually righties. And then when they go out and make a big splash, I feel like it's always a righty too. But you got Rodon coming off the 60-day IL. I think he only threw like less than 60 pitches in his last tune-up. So what do you see him going for as far as pitch count, assuming everything goes according to plan for him tonight?
Yeah, he didn't throw a ton of pitches, like you said, in his last start. I expect like 75-ish. At 9,100, it's kind of a weird price because he's still good and, pretty likely to have success over those, let's call it 75 pitches. But it just makes it so hard for him to have a true like slate breaking game that you have to have. And then obviously you still have risk like you always do with pitchers that he just doesn't pitch well. So he's someone that he was showing up a decent amount when I did my Sims video earlier. His ownership has come down a bit as the day's gone on. I hope that I don't really get too much of him just because there's so many other good pitchers. To me, it's kind of like Urias yesterday, except not as good because like Urias, I expected to be limited around 85 pitches. I think he threw 88. He ended up having a really good start. I don't expect Carlos Rodon to even go that far. So it's just a situation where, yeah, he can certainly do well for 9,100, but he just isn't, he's very unlikely to have the same leash as Brown, Gallen, Abbott, Castillo, Burns, Cease, Darvish, any of these guys.
Are you on board with 12% ownership right now, given that pitch? I mean, for all we know, he could throw 70 pitches.
Right. 12% is better than the like 18 or whatever it was he was getting this morning. It still seems a little high. Just because you don't have that ceiling.
Yeah, right. Any interest in Taillon on the other side? I only ask because he's dirt cheap, and the Yankees, like, they have a pretty high total at 4.8, but $5,200 Taillon against this Yankees team that does have some strikeouts in the lineup. Yeah,
so Taillon's sort of interesting. I don't think you're going to really need to get to him on this slate because there are so many good pitching options. He's pulling 4% ownership, about a 4.5% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. He's only 5,200, which is too cheap for him. It's too cheap for most starting pitchers. 20.7% K percentage overall this year, 4.85 xFIP. But what really stands out to me is his splits, where he's been legitimately good against right-handed hitters this year. He's typically throughout his career struggled with lefties, but this year it really stands out where he has struck out almost 25% of the right-handed hitters he's faced. He's held them to a 115 expected ISO, a 286 expected WOBA, legitimately good numbers across the board there. And then lefties have absolutely lit him up. 17% strikeout percentage, 344 expected ISO, 430 expected WOBA. The Yankees have 3 lefties in their lineup. Rizzo batting 3rd, McKinney batting 7th, and Cordero batting 9th. It's a right-handed heavy lineup. The lefties aren't very good with the exception of Rizzo. So it does actually set up as a pretty decent spot for Taillon. But again, I just don't think you're going to actually need to roster him all that much because there's a lot of pretty cheap hitting you can get to in good spots. And there is a lot of good pitching on the slate as well.
Okay. Yeah, I only ask because like almost 21% K rate is pretty, average. He's been average in most facets, right? But 4.85 xFIP. I guess what you're saying makes sense here. Do you have interest in bats on either side here from a stacking perspective?
Not a ton. I do think there's some value from the Yankees. You have Volpe leading off again at 3,500. That's going to be a good shortstop value. Rizzo at 4,100. I like 4.5 implied run total for New York. It's in a good park for power, but they're coming in middle of the pack. 4% chance of being the top stack. 5.5% aggregate ownership. I don't think they really stand out. And again, you have a bunch of righties here against a pitcher that's actually been good against righties. On the other side, I'm not particularly interested in going up against Carlos Rodon in a very good Yankees bullpen.
All right, let's talk about this Texas and Washington game. Pretty interesting here. Obviously, we won't spend a ton of time on pitching. You've got Cody Bradford right now, minimum salary. So he's at the dead min, but around 7% ownership right now. Jumping off the charts as far as top value goes in the top pitchers tool for obvious reason. And then on the other side, it's Trevor Williams, Texas Rangers, massive favorites here. 15% top stack probability or 14% top stack probability on a 12-game slate. Implied total north of 6 today, Adam. And I mean, listen, dude, Williams is allowing almost 2 home runs per 9. He has a 16.9% K rate. Not a lot of things are likely going to work in his favor today against the Rangers.
Yeah. As far as Bradford goes, he's fine as a punt option, pulling 7%, like you said, 4K. He's just cheaper than he should be. 90 pitches in 4 1/3 innings in his last start against Detroit. Projects to be not good, but not horrible. Most of the projection models on FanGraphs have him between 20 and 21% strikeout percentage over the rest of the season, like 4.5 to 4.8 FIP. So again, not good, but good enough that at 4K he's underpriced. Pretty much impossible, I think, to get to Trevor Williams. And it does set up as a great spot for the Rangers. They are, when you look at the top stacks tool, it's basically Boston and Texas at the top, and then a huge drop off and a bunch of teams that look the same. The difference between Texas and Boston, and the reason Texas is likely to be lower owned than Boston, is that they are expensive, especially at the top of their lineup. $6K for Semien, $6,200 for Seager, $5,700 for Garcia. Low is $4,600. Young is $5K. Heim is $4,800. Then the bottom of the lineup is cheap, but they're just going to be a little bit more difficult to get to. But it sets up as a really good spot. Nat Stadium is above average 4 home runs. Williams has only struck out 11.7% of left-handed hitters this year. 201 expected ISO, 365 expected WOBA. Looks really good for Seager, Lowe, Heim. Righties have a 225 expected ISO against him. The strikeout percentage is about double at 22.5%, but still plenty of power upside for the righties in this lineup as well. So really like Texas if you can find the salary for him.
I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves since we're going game by game here. Of course, live before a lot coming up after this. Who we got? Greg and Neil after this. But I do want to kind of dig into this just a little bit further with you. If you were to get to these Texas stacks, what type of pitching are you seeing pop up on a site like DraftKings where you have to roster 2 of them?
So when I did my Sims video earlier, there was one Texas stack towards the top in Sims ROI, and it had Rich Hill and Savali as the pitchers, and then it also had cheap one-offs. That's not saying like if you go to Texas, you have to play Rich Hill or something, but you definitely did need to save some money on one-offs, and you are more likely to end up in that mid-range pitching. But it's not the end of the world because there are a lot of good cheap one-offs today. Like I think that lineup, I don't remember for sure, but I think it had like Connor Wong at catcher. I think it had one of the cheap A's, which is perfectly fine. So you can still make pretty solid lineups. Just they're not going to look quite as good as, top to bottom as like your Red Sox stack, given how cheap they are.
And we'll get into this as well, but do you think that there are some really nice lower owned maybe or value stacks that could make you a little bit different and also allow you to get to some better? I should point out too, there are no 10K pitchers today. So right. I mean, I think Abbott's the most expensive pitcher on this slate, in front of Zach Gallen and Luis Castillo. Yeah.
I mean, you can essentially spend like 18K, 18.5 and get the best pitching on the slate, or you can save money. Savali is cheap. If Texas would certainly be a team where maybe you do consider going to Jamison Taillon or Bradford so you can get better one-offs. But yeah, there are also cheap teams, that you can stack alongside them. Oakland stands out as being inexpensive. The Nats on the other side of this game, are very inexpensive with the exception of Lane Thomas. So there's a lot of ways you can make the Rangers work.
Anything else for this game, or you want to talk KC and Cleveland?
I sort of mentioned it, but I don't mind the Nat side for value. 4.3 implied run total here. We don't have their lineup yet, but Stone Garrett, 2,500, looks like a good price tag. Meneses at 3,400 looks fine. Lane Thomas is the only guy in their projected lineup above 3,700. He's been very, very good this year. So it's not like you mind paying that, but they are one of the teams that from a value standpoint look pretty appealing.
We've seen pitchers really beat up on the Royals lately. You got Aaron Savali on the mound today and Daniel Lynch going against him. Royals plus 155 on the road, 8-run total here. Implied total for the Royals is sub 4 right now. You mentioned Savali is going to pop up in a lot of those high price stacks like the Texas Rangers. How much of him do you think you have today against the Royals?
Yeah, I'll probably get a good amount here. He projects well. It's a good matchup. Kansas City's active roster is second worst in WRC plus against right-handed pitching this year. Only been better than the Tigers. 25% strikeout percentage on their active roster as well. 3.4 implied run total has dropped even from earlier. It's now the lowest implied run total on the slate. Savali struck out 18.5% of hitters so far this year in 8 starts. Last year, though, he struck out 24%. Most of the projection models on FanGraphs expect him to be around 21 to 22% over the rest of the season. The bat's a little bit lower at 18.5%. But either way, good matchup, good price tag at 7,700. He's getting ownership at 19%. I think it's pretty much warranted.
How about these Cleveland bats today? We've seen them pop up a whole lot lately in the top stack tool because of the price point. Maybe not so much today as far as value score goes. They do get around 6% aggregate ownership in the top stack tool right now, but not looking like they're popping nearly as high as we've seen them in previous games.
Yeah, they're decent, middle of the road. They're like 9th in stack score. Daniel Lynch isn't that good. So far this year, 202 expected ISO to righties, 325 expected WOBA. If you go back to the start of last year, 182 expected ISO, 339 expected WOBA, 20% strikeout percentage to righties. He's not very good. He's not, the worst pitcher in the world. The pricing on Cleveland is pretty appealing. Ahmed Rosario stands out at 3,800. I mentioned him in my article today. Not that in the top hitter section, not that he is one of the best hitters, but from a value standpoint and what he can bring to your lineup, he looks really good. Shortstop, cheap, has stolen base upside, has the platoon advantage against Lynch. Ramirez is always going to look good. One issue with the Guardians, though, is that, for one, they just don't have a lot of power in their lineup, with the exception of essentially Ramirez, Naylor, and Bell, who hasn't even been good this year. But also, Kwan, lefty, Naylor, lefty, Jimenez, lefty. Those are guys that typically you're trying to get to in stacks. So Cleveland looks fine, but not nearly as good as they have on other slates recently.
Any interest at all in Kansas City against the Volley? Not a strikeout pitcher. Hasn't given up a lot of power, but in previous years he has, been below average in power allowed. Not exactly an extreme ground ball pitcher either, only 41% ground ball rate. Anything that stand out here on the Royals side of the ball?
I think they're a decent, they're kind of like the Nats, where you can use them for value. They're not getting a lot of ownership, so maybe, it's a team that you could pair with Texas, but it's not like they stand out. Like I said, lowest implied run total on the slate. The top of the order is always fine to get to. Garcia's cheap, Prado's cheap, Melendez is cheap. Witt and Perez are both, high upside plays at weak positions. So I don't mind sort of using them to mix in with higher upside stacks, but there's nothing that looks particularly good.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about this next one. Then you've got Oakland and you have Boston. Bullpen game on both sides. Luis Medina, who's actually looked better lately. I don't know if that lasts, but this guy was just getting tuned up every single appearance. Since they started bringing him out of the bullpen as a long relief guy, he hasn't been terrible. But still, that's, not to bury the lead here. The Boston Red Sox right now have an implied total that's like north of 6.5. So that tells you all you need to know. And then on the other side of this one, Brandon Walter looking to get the long relief left-hander toeing the rubber for Boston. Now, we can just ignore pitching here, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. You are likely to get Walter as the follower for the Red Sox. He does project to be decent, and he's very inexpensive, but probably not going to get much.
So Boston bats. I guess this is where we need to kind of start and finish this one. We could talk about Oakland, but really it comes because that Oakland stack is actually getting some ownership. One of the highest, maybe the highest value stack on the board. I think it is, as a matter of fact. But Boston, dude, they score 15% top value score, which is crazy for a team that has such an high implied total. Massive stack score. They are very high owned, don't get me wrong, but there's not much more you could ask for in a situation like this, especially given their value.
Yeah, they look really good. It's just, they're just a different team. They have the 6.5 implied run total, but they're also just so cheap. No Yoshida in the lineup. So you are losing one of their best hitters, but that does make the lineup even cheaper. You have Sam Long opening as well, so that kind of adds a weird wrinkle, but I'm not too concerned about that. It does make me a little concerned that maybe Yoshida ends up pinch hitting for like Kike or something, but I assume that he's just getting the day off. In the outfield, you have, Kike is not playing the outfield, I don't think, so probably not going to happen. But they look really good. They, in the Sims tool earlier, even though they are the most popular team or are projected to be the most popular team, they were still just essentially getting jammed in. They were still, positive plays because they're really good and they're cheap. Devers is the most expensive guy in the lineup at 4,900. Medina has given up power to righties this year, so certainly don't sleep on Duvall and Kike and Turner. They can certainly do damage. And then even though he has been better at limiting power to lefties, you're still not going to be afraid to play Devers, Duran, who gives you stolen base upside as well. Verdugo, Casas is free. Connor Wong is a good punt catcher. So it's just a really, really easy team to get to. And it's not just that, like, the appeal for them isn't just that they have the 6.5 implied run total. It's that you can get them and then get such good players around them as well. Like, I think in the top simulated lineup in my video, it was like a 5-man Boston stack. I think it had Langoliers and Rooker maybe. So, two cheap right-handed bats from the A's, and then like a Corey Seager one-off with good pitching. It's you just get such good lineups because of the pricing.
I feel like you don't see that very often with the MLB Sims tool either. Like on a 12-game slate, a team that is that high owned still getting ranked as high as it is with the pre-contest ROI, like simmed ROI. It totally makes sense. And you just broke it down perfectly, but you don't see that very often with a stack that's getting almost 20% in the aggregate.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like it's one or two hitters pulling up the aggregate ownership. This whole team is going to be popular. So it does make it a little bit, difficult to stack. The nice thing though is that it is a 12-game slate. So, you're talking Duran and Devers both north of 20% ownership, Turner at 20%. Everybody else in the teens, basically. So, they are popular top to bottom, but with it being a 12-game slate, it's not the end of the world. You can still find enough relatively low-owned guys to balance it out.
Sims tool link in the description too. True game changer. If you want to try that and you want to get in on it and see what we're talking about. I mean, Adam does a video every day on it, throws it on YouTube, throws it up on Twitter as well. Take a gander at that. If you're interested, use the link here in the description on YouTube and sign up. But we can keep moving here. With Oakland, just to wrap this game up, first of all, is Boston right now going to be your highest owned stack?
I haven't made lineups, but based on how things were looking earlier, yes.
All right. Anything to add on Oakland before we move on?
Yeah, I hate their lineup. I thought so they're really, really cheap. They're getting a nice park upgrade in Boston. They're not facing elite pitching by any stretch. It's not a super appealing spot. You are getting essentially a bullpen game. You expect Walter to be the long guy, and he does project to be a competent pitcher, but hitting in Fenway is nice. They are really cheap. Jordan Diaz batting second at 2,100 looks like a really good value. Brent Rooker is one of my favorite bats on the slate from a value standpoint. 3,300 expected ISO against left-handed pitching since last year, north of 200. Just a good hitter in a good hitter's park. So Rooker really stands out. Langoliers is a good punt option at catcher, but I don't know what they're doing. Like they're running a bunch of lefties out there. Langoliers is batting seventh. The projected lineup this morning had Langoliers hitting fourth. You had Aledmus Diaz in it. He's not playing. Jordan Diaz is in, but it's a really weird lineup considering we're expecting two left-handed pitchers from the Red Sox, and the A's just decided to run a bunch of lefties out.
1-2 said Kirby was my big stand yesterday, had 80%. Yeah, I mean, that sucks. He went 6 2/3, 93 pitches. Like he allowed one run at him. It's not like he was inefficient. He only had 3 strikeouts though, and that's the risk you run with guys like him. Sometimes they just don't get strikeouts on occasion.
Right.
I mean, yeah, dude. We'll get to that game though. We'll talk Seattle and Houston again in just a few minutes, but let's get to this Cincinnati and Milwaukee game next. Andrew Abbott, Corbin Burns, 7.5 run total. Cincinnati slight money line favorite on the road. Abbott's good, man. This kid's good. And he's getting some ownership today against Milwaukee, a team that does have some strikeouts in the lineup. He's coming off just 3 phenomenal performances, capped off by that 7 2/3 1-run 12K game against San Diego last time out. He's just racking up an insane amount of strikeouts recently. 10 against Colorado, 8 against Baltimore, 12 against San Diego, which obviously isn't the easiest of matchups. Now he goes into Milwaukee, which sure, not the best or most pitcher-friendly venue, but there's no denying he's been extremely good.
Yeah, he's been extremely good. He's also been extremely lucky, but that's not to say that he isn't really good. It's just that he's not going to keep limiting runs to the extent that he has. 1.21 ERA, but a 100% left on base percentage, a 190 BABIP, 7.8%.
Yeah, that's pretty lucky. That's pretty lucky.
7.8% home run per fly ball percentage. He's going to start giving up some runs, but that strikeout stuff is real. It probably regresses to 26, 27% instead of 29. But point being, he is very good. Don't look at the ERA, that's going to come up, but he's still very good. And you do have strikeouts in the Brewers lineup. The only real issue is that he is the most expensive pitcher on the slate. And it's a slate where you do have a lot of other very good pitchers as well, with Castillo, Brown, Cease, Gallen. There's just so many good arms on this slate, but he's pulling around 20% ownership or so right now. I don't have, a major issue with that. We have him third in top 2 pitcher percentage, but pretty much just lumped in with Brown, Gallen, Castillo, Burns.
It's hard to know what to make of Corbin Burns right now. The guy has some phenomenal performances, and then and then just like straight negative games. He had a perfect game through going into the 6th. I actually pulled it up. I don't know if you ever go on the MLB app. It'll show like no hitter or perfect game in red before you click on the game. Like, that's odd. He had a no hitter going actually in the 6th, I think, but he had the bases loaded. So, it was one of those odd ones. Now you've got him going up against Cincinnati, $9,000. He's also getting 32% ownership today compared to, Abbott's 21, Luis Castillo at 18, Hunter Brown at 21. All of these guys similarly priced north of 9K. Where does Burns slot in for you? Like, is he the guy that you're going to be getting the most exposure to at the top?
I think he's going a little bit over-owned here just because he's so similar to these other pitchers. We have him at 32% ownership. He is less expensive than Castillo, Abbott, Gallen, and Brown, but it's not by a wide margin. There's going to be a lot of lineups where you can just get to one of those guys. So it's a little weird to me that, Castillo is getting half the ownership. Brown is getting he's like 1.5 times as popular as Brown. He's more popular than Gallen. He's more popular than Abbott. I think he's a good play. I just don't think he's that much different than anybody else.
Okay. So then if you're just looking at this game, how much are you prioritizing pitching in this game against the field when you're looking at the other 11 games on the slate and 2 9K plus guys on this one?
I assume I'll probably be around the field on both pitchers, probably a little bit under on Burns, but I doubt it's going to be anything too crazy.
Any interest in bats today?
Not particularly. It's a good hitter's park, but 3.7 to 3.8 implied run totals for both teams. Both pitchers are good. If you get to a little bit of Yelich, Contreras, Adames, that's obviously fine. If you get to like De La Cruz, that's obviously fine. But I think it's pretty tough to make strong cases for either offense. We have Cincinnati right now dead last in stack score. We have Milwaukee 5th from the bottom. Doesn't look like a spot where I'm getting the offenses.
Sleeper picks, man. You guys have known about Sleeper, right? You've been playing fantasy on Sleeper. I know I have for a long time. I mean, they've been around for a decade. They got 112,000 reviews on Apple or on app in the Apple App Store. 112,000, 4.7, 4.8 stars out of 5. They've always done things right. It's become like it's become, you always had like the ESPN or NFL, and so many of them were just terrible for fantasy football. Sleeper took off, and then they go, you know what? Let's introduce picks, which is the over-under game, as you'd see, Prize Picks or Underdog or Drafters or any of them, except they threw a little wrinkle into the works, which I think might interest you. Number one, you're getting the first match deposit bonus 100% up to $100. So if you're in these states that allow these over-under games, and many of them do, particularly non-legal betting states, don't pass up free money. If you're on Prize Picks and you're like, man, I like it on Prize Picks. Yeah, but you should like free money too. And at Sleeper, just like it is standard across the industry with all of these sites, 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. So you put $100 in, you got 200 now. Shit, even if you only have $20, you get $20, you got 40 now. So any of these lineups, any of these cards you want to play, you're playing $10 cards, you're going to play 10 of them. Now you can play 20 if you're putting $100 in and maxing out that deposit bonus. But they have a dynamic payout system, a dynamic pricing system, which makes it so, unlike all of these other sites, listen up on this one, because this is what makes it cool. Unlike all of those other sites, now you can actually put home runs in your card. NBA rolls around, you're going to be able to put triple doubles, double doubles in there, where you can't do that anywhere else. Football, you should be licking your chops looking at football going, oh, wait, now I can actually take touchdown score bet or props on the over or the under, a half a touchdown. You can do that on Sleeper. Now, of course, you could do it with like a Henry or a Jonathan Taylor at other spots, but here you'd be able to do that with guys that might be at a traditional book plus 500 to score a touchdown, plus 300 to score a touchdown, because Sleeper applies a multiplier to all of the overs and the under based on how likely the outcome is to occur. So say a guy's like plus 400 to homer, it would be 4X on the over a half a homer, and then, very low multiplier on the under. So now you can add all of these like exotic spots, all of these cool ones, over-unders onto your card using the multiplier. They have up to 100X payouts. You can play up to 8 legs. And they also have something called squads, where you can invite family or friends or anybody to tail your picks, and you can see them one click, boom, you're in, and you can tail that or they can tail yours. So they're doing things right over there at Sleeper. I just put out a full review and tutorial on it over on the Odd Shopper channel. But more than anything, the link in the description and in chat will get you first match deposit, 100% up to $100. Check out the dynamic payouts. Check out a way cool, I won't say cooler because there's quirks to everything, but like a very cool format for these picks that I think eventually will be adopted by the rest of the industry. So Sleeper Picks, link in the description and in chat. Get that deposit bonus, take advantage of free money, and start playing. All right, let's go with the Seattle Mariners, Houston Texans, Luis Castillo, Hunter Brown. What did I say? Texans?
Houston Texans.
Dude, I just did a 20-minute fantasy football video 5 minutes before I started this show. So I'm surprised I didn't say the Seattle Seahawks and the Houston Texans and the Houston Astros. It's tough going from one sport to the next. You know, when you're doing like baseball and basketball, sucks.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But we just went from 2 9K pitchers and above, right? Now you have 2 more of them in Castillo and Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown 9,200, getting around 21%, 16.7% top 2 probability in the top pitchers tool. And then Luis Castillo, 17.8% ownership. We have him with a 15% top 2 probability in the tool at 9,400.
Yeah, both of these pitchers look good. The run total's been dropping throughout the day. It's now down to 7 runs, basically a 3.5 implied run total for both sides. Hunter Brown at 9,200 looks good. The Mariners have power in their lineup, but they also have a lot of strikeouts. For the season, Brown has a 27.5% strikeout percentage. That's better than every pitcher on the slate other than Castillo and Abbott. 3.06 xFIP. We have him projected as the second highest scoring pitcher, just behind Zach Gallen. He looks really good. And then Castillo on the other side looks good as well. We have him third behind Brown and Gallen, 27.5%, sorry, 27.9% strikeout percentage, 3.68 xFIP. Not the best strikeout matchup against Houston, but there are strikeouts in the lineup. It's just the way that they're distributed isn't ideal. Mauricio Dubon leading off doesn't strike out. Bregman hitting second doesn't strike out. Tucker hitting third doesn't strike out. Abreu, 25% K percentage against righties this year. Pena, 26%. Diaz batting sixth, hard to strike out. Jolks, 24.5%. McCormick okay. I don't remember his exact number. I think it's around 24%. And Maldonado's at 30%. So there are strikeouts. It's just that they're at the bottom of the order. So I do slightly prefer Brown, but both of these pitchers look good. And as I said before, not a knock on Corbin Burns, but I don't totally understand why they're getting more ownership or not getting, why they're not closer in ownership to Burns. I think they all should be pretty much the same.
Yeah, right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just looking for by ownership right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of the highest owned pitchers are 9K and above on DraftKings, and the top 4 as well.
Yeah, but none are above 10K.
What's that?
I said, and none above 10K.
Yeah. Right. There's none of them even on the slate, but I'm just saying from an ownership perspective, all those guys are top 4 owned and 6 of the top 8. There's just not a lot of great value pitching out there today. Yeah,
there's not any value pitching you go to, you're taking risks. You know, you're talking Bradford at 4K, Tyon at 5,200, Walter at 4K. You know, those guys are fine if you have to pay down, but you're certainly not comfortable with it. But the nice thing is that since you don't have those, 11.5, 12K, like Spencer Strider type guys, you can play the most expensive pitching on the slate and you're still getting around 4K per roster spot on DraftKings.
Jay Miz said, Laffy, how money is Bijan Robinson going to be? Might get some short lines to start the year. Yeah, and I think they're going to use him like they used Saquon Barkley in his rookie season, where you draft him to a team that like should never draft a running back that early, but they're trying to put, asses in the seats and they're just going to run him into the ground, drafting him that early. But I don't think I have a single share in best ball.
I was going to say, I don't think I've drafted him once.
And would I, if he popped up? Yeah, I don't think I've had the opportunity, but also I've just been going so heavy wide receiver early.
Yeah. And the other problem with where he's going is Taylor's going in the second round. Pollard's going in the second round. Henry's going. Chubb is going. Like, they're just going later. So when I do get the opportunity to draft him, I'm just taking like Devontae Adams or Stephon Diggs or whoever.
Or Garrett Wilson for me. I mean, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
But Bijan Robinson's going in the first round right now.
Right. And that's the thing. It would be different if like all of them, if McCaffrey, Pollard, Taylor, Robinson, like if they're all going in the first round, I'd probably be getting more Robinson. But as is, it's like, oh, I can take whatever wide receiver I want and then grab a really good running back next pick if I want to, or even in the third round.
I agree. I also think he could have a massive volume season too, but
yeah, he could. But also, like, it's not like he's in a backfield by himself. Like, he could get a ton of value, but a ton of volume, but like he also could not.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
And yeah, I mean, I agree with Andrew Jennison. He said he never drafts running backs whose ADP is based on their ceiling. Like, I'm not gonna say I never draft anybody in any situation, but like, it seems like he is being drafted for his ceiling, and all these other guys are being drafted for their floor. Essentially,
I agree. Tyler Algier, like, I don't think he's not going to get. I don't think he's just going to disappear either.
Right?
So.
Yeah, I have more of him than I do Robinson, just because he'll randomly be there in like the 14th round or something. You're just like, okay.
God, Nick Chubb's being drafted at his floor with no Kareem Hunt.
Right.
Like Jonathan Taylor, you mentioned these guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Barkley's the other one in that range.
Barkley, yeah. You're right. They're being drafted at their floor. God, I can't wait. But no, Robinson could be huge this year. To me, it's just a tough spot to find value in that. I do think Andrew's right, though. He's being drafted at his ceiling for sure. And a lot of guys aren't.
So, and Patterson's still there too.
Yeah. I mean, I assume Patterson's, I have no idea what his role is going to be at all. Neither. But
it's just another, like, hey, this could end up being bad for Robinson. Like,
Andrew said, give me all the Chubb. Yeah, dude, Chubb it up. I need to
get more. I don't have enough of those running backs in general. Because I keep going like wide receiver again. But
yeah. Well, for me, it's a weird zone. Once you get there, it's like I could either reach a little bit on a receiver or take one of those running backs. And in like half the drafts I've been doing, if I land in that spot, I have been taking some running backs just because the ceiling there is massive. Right.
And I think I'll probably get more going forward. I've been pretty aggressively targeting quarterbacks. So like I have a lot of Josh Allen. I think I have a lot of Hurts. So that's also kind of costing me those running backs.
True. Yeah, I've been trying to aggressively. Nothing pisses me off more than getting like the 2 top pass catchers for a stack, and then some asshole drafts the quarterback 3 rounds early. Like, got Tyreek Hill and Waddle the other day. First 2 rounds, beautiful. I'm like, I'll get to it easy. I'll even reach a little bit. Guy takes him at like 57 overall.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, like, at least they're still positively correlated. Like, if
but you know what I mean. It's nice to have that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then they reach so early and they have none of the pass. That's the problem with best balls. There's always guys who have no idea what they're doing, which is actually sometimes worse for you in a sense if they take that guy you're looking for. Ultimately, long term, it's way better for you, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, like they're going to draft poorly, but it also can really screw your team.
Yeah, they're going to draft poorly, but it can screw your personal draft up as well.
Right.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about actually anything else for Seattle or Houston as far as bats go. Lowest total on the slate.
No, I mean, they're both talented enough offenses that if you wanted to just get to pretty cheap, good hitters, great, but really tough matchup for both teams.
All right. T. Kim, I thought this was MLB. It is, dude. Don't worry. We still got 33 minutes left. But hey, while we were talking football, hopefully you all subscribe to our Stochastic Fantasy Football channel. Doing a lot of best ball stuff. Neil, Matt, myself, a lot of fantasy football stuff already. It's go time, baby. Get in on it. We're going to have some fun. All right. 1-2 said, yeah, you thought. Baltimore and Minnesota. Let's talk about this one. Cole Irvin, Bailey over. Plus 125 Baltimore money line on the road. 8.5 run total here. We've both already talked about there's just not a lot of value pitching. Now Ober's 8,300. He's not exactly a value play here, but Irvin 5K southpaw getting no ownership whatsoever. Yes, he's very cheap, but only 4% top 2 probability. Any interest in pitching in this game?
I kind of like Ober as a large field tournament pivot to Savali. He's $600 more expensive. He's the type of guy where I don't think I'm going to get a lot of exposure overall, but he works really well. Like if you're stacking Boston, for example, where, you can get a 4% owned Ober or 5% owned Ober instead of a 20% owned Savali. The Orioles lineup today isn't bad, but as far as Orioles lineups go, it's about as bad as you're going to get. There's no Austin Hayes. There's no Aaron Hicks. There's no Adley Rutschman. So, it's still good. But now instead of hitting 8th, you have Westbrook hitting 5th. You have Kowser hitting 6th. So it's 3.8 to 3.9 implied run total. Ober has a 25% strikeout percentage this season. I still don't love the matchup for him. It's still a solid lineup overall. You have Mateo in there, so anytime the 9 hole comes up, you're getting a strikeout for Ober. But it's, I think, a reasonable pivot to Savali.
How about bats on either side? Just pulling up the top stack tool, looking at this. You've got Minnesota, what, 5% ownership? No real leverage, no real negative leverage in this one either. Baltimore, I know you were stoked about the Orioles yesterday, just slaughtering the Yankees. They've got 3% ownership, 3.6% top play probability in the top stacks tool. Any thoughts here on bats if we're not going to much pitching?
I like the Minnesota side. Irvin's just not particularly good. Since the start of last year, 227 expected ISO to righties, 347 expected WOBA. The Twins lineup is entirely right-handed with the exception of Max Kepler hitting 8th. Correa looks good. Buxton looks good. And then everybody else is free. Kyle Farmer batting cleanup at 2,300 with the MPE. Solano's hitting second base eligible. Castro gives you some stolen base upside. Miranda's got power at 3,100. So I'm a little surprised Minnesota's not getting a little bit more ownership. We do have them 5th in stack score, about a 9% chance of being the top value stack in addition to a 4% chance of being the top scoring stack. So I am interested in the Twins. I think it's more difficult to get to the Orioles. Ober's not a bad pitcher overall. 125 expected ISO to lefties this year. He has given up power to righties, 247 expected ISO, but also a 28% strikeout percentage against righties. Predominantly left-handed lineup. There's 4 righties in it, but Westberg is the only right-handed hitter in the top 6. Then you have Urias, McCann, Mateo rounding out the lineup. So I think it's pretty tough to get to the O's.
Okay. We've got St. Louis and Chicago. Jordan Montgomery, Dylan Cease, 8.5 run total here. St. Louis slight favorites on the road. Montgomery, Dylan Cease. I don't know. I mean, Cease is one of the, I mentioned that there were, 6 of the 8 highest owned pitchers right now are 9K and up. Dylan Cease at 8,500 is in there as well. He's getting around 16%. Slight negative leverage against the Seattle team. Not the greatest strikeout matchup either. How do you approach a guy like Dylan Cease today, given all of these 9K similarly priced arms around him?
Yeah, I was getting around the field on Cease earlier in the Sims video. Good strikeout stuff. Not a great matchup. Tough to strike out and just good hitters in the Cardinals lineup. They are running 5 righties out there, 4 lefties. Cease has struck righties out 32% of the time this year, 23% to lefties. Doesn't give up a ton of power to either side. About a 150 expected ISO to lefties, 160 to righties. So he looks good, but again, it's not like he looks better than a bunch of other pitchers too. So I expect to be pretty spread out at pitching in general today. I think the 16% ownership coming into Cease is perfectly fine.
Yeah, Sotex, atone for your sins. You're damn right, brother. We're at we'll crush 150 likes here today. It's baseball, so you got to set expectations a little lower than you would with basketball or football, but 620 plus people watching. Yeah, there's 23 of you out there. 23, you feeling kind on a Friday afternoon. Take your finger, tap that screen, hit that thumbs up. If you hate the show, hit the thumbs down, but make sure to do it twice. Maybe your computer, just give it a little click there. Help us out. Subscribe to the channel as well. Try and get the 100K at some point in the football season. I think we can do it. Thanks to you guys, obviously. Many of you hang out with us here all the time. But if you're new, love to have you join us. James Williams, that's a cool as fuck Orioles hat, Adam. He likes your Orioles hat.
Me too. Nice.
Jordan, why are you laughing? I know. You know why? Because I was going to say AF, but if you say that like out loud instead of typing it, you just sound like a dummy. So I had to fully commit.
Yeah.
Adam says it a lot, and I always just shake my head.
I don't
He's
say
like,
this slate.
He's like, this slate's annoying AF to me. Like, we're talking before a show.
Yeah, all the time.
And I just don't.
And then I say King.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah. What do you think about this, King? No, it's yeah, I had to commit.
I feel
what
like Jordan
about
says King.
What's that?
I feel like Jordan says King.
For sure. Oh no, no, you don't. Ironically, all right, put yourself on screen for a second. I want you to I want you to use this. By the way, I saw a video of you chugging that pint the other day or whatever it was. Nice work.
Yeah.
On 4th of July. How would you use it ironically? Like in what context?
Like if you're asking someone for something, just like throw king at the end, or like brother. Like I'll throw those two around. Like you know how you use fella?
Yeah.
I'll throw that brother or king around.
Nothing work. Okay. I see what you're saying. The way I would call somebody like sport or champ, but that's really just an insulting. Yeah. How you doing, champ? Oh man. Hey, sport, you go ahead and grab me that. Like that's if a grown man tapped your shoulder at the bar, like his drink was sitting over from you, and he was like, "Hey, sport, can you slide that over my way?"
I mean, I assume this guy's like 65 years old.
I think you'd probably just be a little bit taken aback, where you just go, "Oh yeah, okay."
I think I would just like stare at him for a second, like
Yeah,
in confusion, and then slowly do what he asked me to.
yeah. What's the one that you would least prefer? Like the one that would be most insulting to you, even though it's not insulting, like in a traditional sense, hearing it is just insulting.
Chiefs pretty bad. I really don't like Bud.
Bud's
my
worst.
go-to. Bud is my go-to if I'm trying to like get under your skin and piss you off. Like that's my go-to.
That's a good one. But my buddies and I, like, if I see my friend, I'm like, "Hey, how you doing, pal?" That's like a friendly.
Yeah, if
thing.
you use it like that, it's one thing. But like, if you can use it in
to demean somebody,
right?
Yes. Listen, pal. That's exactly. So I guess it all depends. Boss is whatever. Boss doesn't bother me. I just don't use it. Right. I don't use it. But someone's like, "What's up, boss?"
That doesn't bother me at all.
No, it's not that bad, actually. It's not insulting. Calling someone bud is the worst.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that do it too.
That's my go-to on Twitter when like somebody's like replying to me and saying stupid shit is I'll just go to Bud and
just all the time. Great.
Yeah.
I use the settle down fella, and that riles people up. Really gets them. All right. Montgomery and bats from this game.
So Montgomery is kind of similar to Ober, where I don't think I'm going to get to a lot of him, but he is a viable pivot away from Savali in that range when you already have, popular hitters around them. Bunch of right-handed bats for the White Sox, good hitters park. It's not a spot where I'm going out of my way to get to Montgomery, but at 2 to 3% ownership, he's fine if you just need to save ownership. 22% K percentage to righties. I'm kind of interested in the White Sox bats, though, especially as like mini stacks in tournaments. This park is good for power, and you have Robert, Jimenez, Vaughn, and Berger, all big time right-handed power bats against a pitcher in Montgomery who isn't bad, but who has allowed a 178 expected ISO to righties this year. I do think there's some home run upside for the White Sox here.
Yeah, there is some. Devin, I work in a kitchen. I have to call my head chef. Been there a year, and it's still awkward. Well, there's that show, The Bear, on FX, where everyone calls everyone chef, and that is super weird. Have you seen that show?
I've heard it's really good, but I haven't watched it.
With Lip from Shameless?
Yeah. So everybody says it's good, and then in the same breath, everybody says like how stressful it is, and I'm like, I'm not watching TV to like be stressed out.
Yeah, it is weird. I don't know. I'm only a few. My wife and I were watching it. It was only a few in, but Shameless was amazing until. I mean, that one insufferable girl. Did you watch Shameless?
Yeah, I watched it recently.
Oh, she was brutal.
So she didn't bother me that much because everybody told me how much she sucked. So I was like expecting it to be even worse, I think.
What was her name?
Debbie.
Deb. Oh.
Yeah, like she sucked, but like I expected her to like be infinitely worse than she was.
Sure.
Just based on because like I had said, like, oh, I'm finally watching Shameless for the first time. And everybody's response like is just how much she sucks. So I expected it to be like 10 times worse.
What was the later episodes, seasons where the whole show went down the shitter?
Sure, yeah. I mean, they did like 12 seasons or something.
I thought I stopped watching after like 6 or 7 or something.
Yeah. I mean, I finished it, but yeah, that's what everybody was saying was, oh, just wait, like it's so bad, like she gets so bad, and so I was expecting like she sucked, but I was expecting it to be a lot worse.
You want to talk Mets and Padres here?
Yep.
Okay. T Kim. Nice. There you go. Listen, we got 4 games to go. The problem with 12-game slates is that sometimes you actually move too quickly because there's so many games that you don't really need to talk about. We've been doing this long enough. We know sometimes when you got to add some filler content in there to get us where we need to go. And then we'll finish 15 minutes late, Adam.
Yeah, exactly. Because what happens is we add all the filler content, and then you start talking about how we're still doing really well on time. You spend 5 minutes patting yourself on the back, and then we still have 5 games to go.
All right, pal. Listen, we're good. New York Mets, San Diego Padres, 8-run total here. Verlander and Yu Darvish. All right, so let's talk about Verlander for a second, shall we? And this guy, talking 40 years old at this stage of the game, striking batters out at 21%, fine, 4.24 xFIP. Like, he hasn't been bad in the sense that we talk about so many other pitchers being bad. He certainly isn't the Verlander of old either. And he's also just traded so many good games for bad games that you kind of never know what you're going to get. And he's not particularly cheap against this Padres team today either.
Yeah, he's another like Bailey Ober, Jordan Montgomery to me, but he's a little bit more expensive as well. Getting, 4 or 5% ownership. So he's fine in an individual lineup here or there, but he's not somebody I expect to be getting a lot of. Tough matchup against the Padres, and still just don't really know what he is at this point. He's likely to have a higher strikeout percentage over the rest of the season than he has so far. He has had some tough matchups this year, and most projection models do expect like a 25 to 27% strikeout percentage over the rest of the year, but there's no guarantee that actually happens. It's not an easy matchup against the Padres, and he's not that inexpensive either compared to other pitchers on the slate.
Yeah. What's his ownership at?
4.5.
4.5. Darvish. Oh, they're both at 4.5. I mean, they basically profile as the same pitcher in the top pitchers tool today, except Darvish has slightly higher top 2 probability in the top pitchers tool.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more interested in Darvish just because he does have a higher strikeout percentage so far this year, 25.7% K percentage, 3.75 xFIP, but it's still not a good matchup. The Mets are a good offense. They have a lot of above average hitters. They're tough to strike out, 10% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 5% ownership for Darvish. So again, just fine in lineups, here and there, but not somebody where I'm expecting to take a really big stand.
Any interest in bats on either side? Any power or potential you see on either side?
Not really. I would say that the Padres are somewhat interesting just because we don't really know still what Verlander is at this stage. And the Padres do have so much talent in their lineup. But this is one of the worst hitters parks in baseball. It's also like 65 degrees because it's San Diego. You have so many parks where it's hot and humid, the ball's going to fly. That's not the case here. They're actually second from the bottom in stack score. I don't find it very easy to get to either offense.
Then you've got Pittsburgh. And you've got Arizona, 8.5 run total here. Pittsburgh plus 170 at Chase Field. So, by the way, it's weird that they have that pool there. My daughter was watching one of those like children's videos. Blippy, dude's a freak, but he's smart and he knows how to make money. And he's like touring Chase Field. Would you go there just like drop trowel and step inside the pool or watch a baseball game?
Wait, what?
Would you? Would you? No, but would you hop in that pool, just take the shirt off?
What, in Arizona?
Kick back and watch a baseball game in the pool at Chase Field or in the hot tub?
Why not?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would you walk around the concourse after you got out of the pool with your shirt off and just like a dripping bathing suit?
No, that feels kind of weird.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a line, right? There's a line to be drawn. I'm not really sure. Like, you gotta, and like, you don't stay in the pool the whole time, right? So, I assume there's a room where you can go and change and everything, but it just feels weird for me.
I think it's called a bathroom.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying like a more private level for a pool like that. You're not going into the one at the 300 level or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't think you bring a change of clothes to a baseball game? It seems kind of odd to me.
Well, I mean, you're in Arizona too. You're gonna dry out pretty quick.
Yeah, but do you really you want to go back to your seat, sitting down, and
you're probably dry by the time you get back to your seat.
I don't know, dude. I guess. Next time you're there, you ever go to Chase Field, do it. Let me know how the
Yeah,
experience is.
I've never been to Chase Field. Driven past it a bunch.
Sounds odd to me. But if you do, get tickets to where you can hop in the pool. And they'd be in there with like 50 other people.
Yeah, it's not at the top of my list of things to do.
All right. Just sounds odd. Anyway. DFS Chief, would you go in the Stingray tank? I don't know.
Is that an option? Is that an option?
I was parasailing once and they dip you and we looked down and there's like 200 of them. I don't know if they were migrating or what. And they're about to dip us down straight on top of them. Turned out they were manta rays and they don't sting. Would have been pretty rough.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been good.
Has anyone ever hit a homer into the pool? Yeah, I think so. I think that happens.
I would assume like it's not like it's in the upper deck or something.
Yeah, for sure. Pittsburgh and Arizona. We've got Rich Hill. You already mentioned getting a little bit of him if you're going to Ranger stacks, like if you're going to these very expensive stacks, particularly the Texas Rangers. And on the other side, Zach Gallen, 24%. He's 9,600. So another one of those popular second highest owned pitchers on DraftKings right now, 9K plus options. What are you doing with the arms in this game?
Yeah, Gallen looks really good. We have him projected as the highest scoring pitcher right now, slightly edging out Brown. 26.8% strikeout percentage. He has the best K minus BB percentage on the slate at 21.7%, 3.44 xFIP. Pirates have one of the lowest implied run totals, slightly below average offense. Gallen just looks really good. Rich Hill on the other side was showing up in some of my top simmed lineups in the video. He could completely disappear and that would be perfectly fine. I don't like him. It's just he's 6,800. You can certainly like hope to get lucky, I guess, but 5-run implied total for Arizona. I'm not looking to get the Hill.
If you were to stack Gallen up against the other options, Corbin, Burns, and I keep coming back to this just because it's a weird slate with pitching, especially of them all consuming the highest ownership. Corbin, Burns, Hunter Brown, Andrew Abbott, Luis Castillo. I guess you could throw Rodon into the mix. Where does Zach Gallen get prioritized among those guys? Or do you just spread it out a bunch?
I think it's between him and Brown for the top spot.
Okay. All right. So where would you put Burns then? Third? Fourth? I know it's not like a concrete, clear-cut answer.
Yeah, probably third. Like I think it's either like to me, it's Gallen and Brown, 1, 2, and then Castillo, Abbott, Burns is like the next group.
What do you think of these Arizona bats today against Rich Hill, given a high implied total sitting at 5.2 right now? We know that Rich Hill can give up some power. He's not exactly throwing heat. Is this a team you want to get to?
I think they're pretty interesting. The problem is that they're relatively expensive. Christian Walker's 5,400. Ketel Marte is 5,900. Gurriel 4,800. But we don't have their lineup yet. But if you get a $2,300 Kyle Lewis, that's a high upside cheap bat. The bottom of the order is likely to be cheap, or even middle through bottom of the order. Longoria 3,400. Either Kelly or Moreno at catcher. They're both going to be cheap. So the Diamondbacks look okay. We have them 6th in stack score right now, about a 6% chance of being the top stack, 4.5% aggregate ownership. So probably going a little bit under owned.
Any interest in Pittsburgh bats at all against Zach Gallen?
No.
Okay. 2 games to go here. Then we turn it over to Greg and Neil. They got live before a lot coming up next. 12-game slate taking you up till 7:05 Eastern time. Make sure to stick around for that. And of course, the Hall of Fame segment. But I do want to shout out someone from yesterday. Hit us with a $50 super chat. This was a real cool part of the show. ATL Birds fan with a $50 super chat, thanking the crew. Took down the Mega Mini Max the other day for 15K using the lineup generator. Like I'm running out of time to talk about all the screenshots and endorsements that have come in on this. And you wouldn't think that it was $4.48 for the first week with the amount of huge wins. We saw the 50K, we saw the 10K, we saw the 3,500 the other day, the 15K now from ATL Birds fans. Shout out to you again, and thanks for that super chat. But I mean, yeah, through and through, $4.48. What do you have to lose? Talking about a tool that is already running, thousands of simmed lineups, right? It's kind of doing what the lineup generator does. It's just you don't have the behind the scenes looks. It's throwing out all of the bad ones and giving you all of the good ones that project closest to the optimal. You get to see the optimal projection for every lineup. You get to see whether it's, how chalky it is, how contrarian it is, compare the two against each other, discard the lineups you don't like, save all the lineups you do like, upload them to CSV if you want, or do it from home or wherever on your phone. Pull over on the side of the road, coming home from work, throw some lineups in on that. It's less than $4.50. Links in the description and in the chat. Click that. It'll take you there. You'll get the half off for the first week. Then it's only less than $9 going forward per week, but you can set all your stack types, which is sweet. You can lock players in. You can swap them out. All of that stuff. A lot of customization or customability. I think we decided that was a word the other day. And you're paying essentially nothing to take it for a test drive. So if you want to check it out, you want to get in on it and see how it works for you, MLB lineup generator, link in the description and in chat. Hopefully you can be sending one of those screenshots to us so we can do the bragging for you. But it doesn't matter if you're playing with a small bankroll, a big bankroll, or if you have all the time in the world or no time in the world. It's literally why we developed this tool for people that might not have the time or might only be playing in the mini max or a few bucks a day. Doesn't matter. Got you covered on all fronts, no matter what style of player you are. Or you just do 50% off all of our tools for the week or month, and the lineup generator for baseball and PGA and football coming up is included. Link for that down there too. 50% off everything, all of our tools for the week or the month or single sport, however you want to play it. If you guys ever have any questions too, hit me up at Loughy_D on Twitter. My DMs are open. All right, Angels and Dodgers. Little LA action here. What do you make of this pitching matchup between Griffin Canning and Tony Gonsolin? Any interest in either of these guys?
Not really. Gonsolin is another Ober, Verlander, Montgomery to me, where he's got an okay matchup. The Angels are without Trout, but still not an easy easy matchup. You still have to deal with Ohtani. Moniak's hit well this year. Ward is solid. Renfro's solid. So it's an okay spot for Gonsolin. I certainly prefer a lot of the other pitchers on the slate, but he is low owned. You can use him, in lineups where you have more popular bats. Really tough, I think, to get the Canning against the Dodgers, though.
We had a super chat from Smoke Show. Thanks, man. $10 super chat from Smoke Show. Favorite low-owned DraftKings stacks, and also can't do the public pool at sporting events. Too many chances for people to pee in that thing with adult beverages in play. How many are going to get out to go number one? I think most people would avoid pissing in the pool still, even if they're in top. Not everybody. And I mean, if that were in Philly, I'd be a little concerned because we got people puking on children intentionally.
Right.
But dude, I take my daughter to swimming every Saturday to swim class, and I get in the pool with her. Let me tell you something. I would much rather get in the Chase Field pool than that. I never really looked at the bottom of it. And my wife was on the other side of the glass. I look at her and I just go like this. I look down at him. There's like 5 Band-Aids just floating towards the bottom. A huge knot of hair comes by and gets wrapped in my and this is a facility in a place 20 minutes down the road. Pretty affluent area. Doylestown, PA, if you guys are familiar with it. It's a good area. But you put all those kids in a pool. Do you know how gross that is, looking down and just seeing Band-Aids and shit?
Yeah, like I cringed at the thought. As far as the Chase Field pool, like the reason that I say, even though like I'm not a huge like public pool guy at all, but I've been in pools in Vegas. Like I can't say I'm not getting in the Chase Field pool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that probably has disgusting stuff.
Right.
That's why there's chlorine.
Right.
That's why we have chemicals. But yeah, this is like a nice indoor facility. And now I got to go back there tomorrow, and I'm dreading the experience. But Smoke Show asked, favorite low-owned stack on DraftKings. You got one?
So, I mean, I'm calling 5% low-owned. I would say Minnesota.
Okay. Yeah. Bats for LA and the Dodgers. Where are they coming in the top? How do they grade out in the top stack tools?
They're like bottom third in stack score. 5.6% chance of being the top stack is fourth, but they're also expensive. So that pulls them down a bit. If you can get to them, great. I think it's very similar to like the Diamondbacks, 5.1 implied run total. Canning is not bad, but the Dodgers are obviously really, really good. He's had a lot more issues with right-handed power than left-handed power this year. He does also have a higher strikeout percentage against righties, but the Dodgers are really, really good. If you can afford them, great. As far as pay up stacks go, I would still rather get to Texas first.
Ready to wrap this one up with Colorado and San Francisco?
Yeah.
Is Gomer, is he confirmed starting?
As far as I know.
Okay. Earlier he wasn't. Like MLB didn't have him and the sports books didn't have him listed, but they also had a line for this game. So, yeah, I would assume that
I mean, their lineup's in.
Okay. And he's on it now. That's all I'm asking. It wasn't in when I made the run sheet for this.
Yeah.
Okay. Ross Stripling going for the San Francisco Giants. Favorable pitcher's park. We really haven't gotten to a lot of, semi-discounted pitching today. Austin Gomer not going to be getting much ownership at all. We have we have Stripling pulling less than 1% right now. He's really cheap as well. Are you full fading pitching in this game?
Probably. Like Stripling's just not stretched out. 50 pitches on the 28th, 24 on the 2nd. Just not expecting him to go deep enough into this game that I'd want to roster him. I'd rather go to Tyon. Gomber on the other side is dirt cheap, not getting any ownership. He's the kind of guy where maybe he shows up here or there, but if I have 0 Gomber, I also wouldn't be surprised or upset.
Guitar Z-Man said, imagine all the shit and piss you swim with in the ocean. But fortunately, I don't swim in the ocean. I hate it. Well, because I'm in the Northeast and it's all that silt from the rivers and everything. It's gross. Put me down south, it's different. But the ocean's also a lot bigger, Adam.
Right. Everything's like diluted.
Yeah. And also, like, it kind of goes, there's plenty of places. What?
Like it goes out.
Yeah. In a pool, it's all confined to one area.
Right.
So I don't know. I prefer it in the ocean. Do you go swimming in the ocean?
Not usually.
We're being honest. The only time I go in there is to take a piss.
Right.
Let's be honest. You go in there, you wait around for a few seconds, make it look, semi-inconspicuous.
Right.
Kind of crouch down a little bit to get waist high. Then you get out and dry off. There's no way. I used to all the time, but I don't know. Not a fan. How far where you live? Like, how far would it take for you to get to an ocean where you could like hang out and swim at?
Ocean City's like 2.5, 3 hours.
Okay. For some reason, I thought there'd be a closer one than you, but I guess not.
No, we only have the Atlantic.
Ocean City, Maryland's where you go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Rehoboth is like right next to it.
Used to party in Ocean City, Maryland. There's a ton of places down there that people party at.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like a party town.
What's that one outdoor bar that they have that everybody goes to?
Secrets?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. I've only been like twice.
I couldn't do that anymore.
No.
Just too old for that. All right. Let's go to bats in this one. San Francisco. Pulling up the top stack tool to take a look at these guys right now. 5.3% ownership on the stack. Only 3.9 top stack percentage, though. And then, a Colorado team that is just routinely going to grade out poorly. Not a good team at Coors. Certainly not going to be a great team for hitting purposes in San Francisco. 1% ownership, 2% top stack probability. Any interest in stacks or individual bats here before we wrap this up?
Not really. The Giants are really cheap and they do have a good matchup against Gomber. My concern, we don't have the lineup yet, but you do have pinch hit risk really whenever they face a lefty. So like Austin Slater is going to project as a good value, but he also probably isn't going to still be in the game once you get into the bullpen, unless it's a blowout. But I do like Wilmer Flores quite a bit at 2,800, JD Davis at 3,900, Patrick Bailey. Those three in particular, I like.
I assume that's Josh commenting from the Stochastic channel, saying I live 2 minutes from the beach, or is that you?
I thought it was Jordan.
Oh, that's you? You've only been there twice in the last 2 years and you live 2 minutes away? What a disgrace.
My college is 30 minutes from Ocean City, and I probably went to Ocean City like 3 times.
That's crazy. Especially if you're younger. I enjoy that.
And when I went to Coastal, it's like 30 minutes from Myrtle Beach, and I think I went to Myrtle Beach like twice.
Damn. Missing out. Sand does kind of suck, though.
I have to be near water, but I actually don't like the beach.
What do you mean you have to be near water?
Like, I really like being around water. Like, in general, like when I'm looking like at apartments and stuff, that's a huge priority. Like,
I mean, it's
that's how I chose, like, initially my college was that Coastal was, 30 minutes from Myrtle Beach, but like I don't actually like being at the beach.
Yeah, you have a great view and location. I wouldn't go swimming in that though.
No, somebody got an alert.
Might get snagged on a body.
I got an alert earlier. Somebody's being pulled out of the water.
Good. Dead, I assume.
No, I think alive.
Oh, that's
I think he just like fell in.
Oh, okay. Well then, if you fell in, is there any easy way to get out or no?
I was actually thinking it. I was walking along like the promenade the other day, and there's ladders on like the piers, but like there's a lot of spots where if you fell in, like you'd have to swim a decent distance to like get to a ladder and like try and pull yourself up.
I don't know about you, but that gives me the chills just thinking about falling in something like that, where you're looking for anything. It's this gross water, and then you do find something, and it's just grimy and slimy, and it's just like you can't see your hand. That'd be such a horrifying experience being stuck down there, falling off a pier or something.
Yeah, no, it would not be fun. And that's kind of the big thing I was thinking about was like how high everything is above the water. So like you'd have to find a ladder. You couldn't just like grab onto the side.
Oh God, that would be so scary.
Yeah.
Favorite stack today, and it could be any stack. And then favorite top 2 pitchers. We'll wrap it up with that. Also, we're almost at 200 likes, so shout out to you guys. Hopefully everyone has a great weekend.
Did you say favorite stack? Is that what you have?
Yeah, favorite stack, and then top 2 favorite pitchers for DraftKings purposes.
Yeah, I mean, it's Boston. Outside of Boston, I'll say Texas and Minnesota. Pitching, Gallen, Brown, Savali.
All right. Stick around, guys. Live Before Lock with Greg and Neil coming up next. Shout out to Jordan Klein for producing this one. Have a good weekend, Jordan. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the All-Star break as well. I won't be back till next week. You got one more show, and then you're taking some time off as well. So follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS. Follow his travels and his late night tirades. Me at Loughy _D, LOUGHY _D. We'll catch you guys back here for the next one. Peace. Yo, it's that time of week again. Time to induct some of you wonderful people into the Stochastic Hall of Fame here, and also give away a whole bunch of free subscriptions to Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value, and all you got to do to get in on this fun, crowning achievement, gather the family around and say, honey, I'm in the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Come watch. They're about to announce my name. Go to stochastic.com/avatar. Download the Stochastic profile picture. Tweet your wins when you win at Stochastic HOF on Twitter and win a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. Get inducted right here. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and boom, you are in. Just like our friend Zach Skaggs, the ever elusive double win. Thank you to the crew and all the tools over at Stochastic. Not getting the free month, but representing Stochastic here. I can appreciate that. 2,250 here in the squeeze and the line drive. Shout out to Zach for a really nice day. And our friend Kenneth Malakar. I don't know what to say. I want to thank all you guys for all the good advice, not to mention all of you guys in chat. Great community of people. Finally, the Hall of Fame, 3rd out of 7,400, $1,000 for a boy who has supported the channel and the site for a long time now. Congrats, Kenneth. We love to see it. And Timmy, first off, Loughy, I'm gonna be up here a lot now, so get it down. The TX is like a CH. So basically, Cha Kiang, listen, dude, I'm going to be doing this a lot as well, and I can assure you I will not get this down anytime soon, but congrats to Timmy. Love to see it. But, man, not a lot to most y'all, but I'm going to say this. I know nothing about golf, but making nice finishes goes to show you how it's getting done. Pay the man. $800 and a free month of Stochastic. Congrats, Timmy. I'm just kidding. Timmy Chakiang. And then how about Derby status or Perez status? Second day playing DFS, and I ship the $1 25K mini max for $2,500 and place second in the $3 MLB 20K moonshot for $1,000. All thanks to Stochastic and the guys there with the great insight and the MLB lineup generator. $4.48 for your first week. You know it. Link in the description, baby. Keith, I'm going to need a punch card at this rate. Yeah, he's been up a lot lately. Keith, $300 in the 7,500 solo shot. Next up is Matt. Shout out to the team at Stochastic for helping me out last night. 350 win there in the 10K Wednesday MLB pinch hit. And we keep moving forward with David Colasanto. Almost hit a 4-figure payout twice in a week. I'll settle for second place and a $200 ROI. Thanks again for the advice. Hell yeah, man. Second place out of 7,100 in the mini max. Take that all day long. And Nate Larson, not enough entries to qualify for the free month, but shout out to the lineup generator. 2 of the top spots. I've said it a million times, guys, whether it's high stakes, low stakes, we got you covered. Just like internet points or it's depletes. Not quite enough to retire early, but who needs that when there's the Stochastic Hall of Fame? See this $25 and $8.50 in the nickel, $600 prize pool, first out of 14,000. But as long as it's top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and you're not chopping more than 3 ways, you're in. $120 free month. What better way to do it than that in some of these low stakes contests? Shout out to It's the Pleats 99 and everybody else. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. You've now been inducted, or welcome back if you've been here before. Remember, download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at StochasticHOF and get that free month and get inducted every single Monday right here in the Hall of Fame.
What is happening, everybody? It is Friday. It is almost the weekend, but first, time for Neil Orfield and myself to break down today's MLB DFS slate. So as you come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel for today. We are sponsored by Sleeper. If you guys haven't signed up at Sleeper yet, it has been a fantasy football platform for a while now, Neil. When did you first find out about Sleeper just as a fantasy football platform?
Maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I've been using it for my unlimited keeper league. It's the platform that we use. Really, really cool.
Yeah, so that was for me too. When I first played in a Stochastic, actually, Dynasty League, which I'm kind of hoping that no one's forgotten exists, so we don't have to do it again this year because I'm very over the league. Emax team is way better than everybody else's. Don't want to deal with it anymore. But starting that league is how I first found out about Sleeper. That was, 3-4 years ago, something like that. And ever since then, it's been a platform that I played a lot of my fantasy football on. And now you can also play Pick'em DFS over there. So there are props you can play against the house over at Sleeper. And if you're signing up, making a deposit for the first time, use the link we have below because it's going to get you up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. And over at Sleeper, they do have Pick'em cards you could build with up to a 100x multiplier. Pretty good odds there, 100x. So find a few props you like, you play them together, up to 100-to-1 odds on those. So go check out Sleeper. And if you are, use that link we have below to sign up. So Neil, it is Friday, which typically means Thursday is what for you?
Usually I play softball on Thursday nights.
But I was very unfortunately notified from you actually on Twitter that there was no softball game yesterday. The reason that I found this out is I was trying to promote the show. It's become a little staple here. We come on Friday, we find out how poorly we played in softball yesterday, and we kind of discussed it a little bit. So I put out a poll where we were going to have everybody just guess how many earned runs you allowed yesterday. And what ends up happening? Here are the poll results, by the way. The overwhelming favorite here, 46% of the people said you allowed more than 10 runs yesterday, but it was actually 0 runs because there was no game. I think this is bullshit. I have a couple conspiracy theories, but first, Neil, I want to know, why did you not have a softball game?
July 4th week, every year we just have the entire league is off. I think the entire Minneapolis sports like situation is off the week of July 4th. Like there are no sports in the park as far as I know. So we just get the 4th week off every year.
So this makes no sense to me. Yesterday was July. Like, who goes, oh my God, it was July 4th. There's no softball out on July 6th. So a couple of things I think have happened here. The most likely scenario is I think you got embarrassed so badly that you are not willing to tell us the results of yesterday's softball game.
That is a false conspiracy. I mean, I told you when I gave up 25 runs, Greg.
Okay, fair enough. The other conspiracy theory I have, and this is the one that I think is a little more accurate. Your pitching has been so poor this year that to get you off the mound, they just made up like, hey, Neil, 4th of July, and it's July 6th, so we don't have softball. And then they found somebody else to pitch.
That they would never do that. They would, because nobody else on my team is willing to pitch. They can't do that. They probably would if they could. If they could find one other person willing to pitch, they would probably do so. But I'm the only one who's willing to pitch, so I'm the only pitcher they got.
So I think they got a ringer. I think they brought somebody in.
Greg, all right, here's what I have to say. So you gave all those options and everybody said I gave up 10 plus runs. I'm just going to tell you the past 2 games we played, my team won, I'm reading the wrong, 20-7, the most recent game. And the game before that, we won 17-9. Like we've just been absolutely crushing, giving up single digit runs each of the past 2 weeks. Also, Greg, on the year. So I've played a total of 9 games, but 2 of them have been against the best team in the league. That's just like, it's hard to beat that team. Outside of that, those 2 games against the best team in the league, I am 6-1 in the games that I played this year.
But you give up a lot of runs and you go like 1 for 4, 2 for 4 with a single every game.
Yeah, but I'm the winning pitcher. That's what really counts. Everybody knows that the wins and losses is the best stat to tell how good of a pitcher is. And I'm 6-1.
Yeah, so like I said, I think that they went to the local McDonald's. They found a homeless guy sleeping in a garbage can. They said, hey, man, we'll give you a small fries. Can you throw the ball underhand? Our current pitcher sucks. The guy said yes. And they reached out to you and said, like, hey, Neil, sorry, July 6th, too close to July 4th, no softball game today.
Maybe. You think they just lied to me? I guess I can't totally like say that they didn't lie to me. I just wouldn't know if they did. So
look at that.
Yeah.
A little bit of a crack in the armor.
Yeah, there's maybe some reason to believe that they did, but I will say that they do this every July 4th. You think it's just like this is the time of year they get fed up with me and they're like, we need a week off from Neil.
Yeah, I think every year on July 4th they'd be like, thank fucking God, it's July 4th. It's close to July 4th, guys. We could pull the old Neil. It's the holiday clause here.
Yeah, they just started doing it the first year and they're like, well, we can't tell them the rest of the season is off. We can at least get them out of here for 1 week. All right, I can believe it. All
right, there we go. So we've gotten to the bottom of what actually happened. But listen, we've got pretty good results for Neil. He gave up 0 earned runs yesterday. It was one of his better pitching performances of the year. We're appreciative for that. But now we have to transition to talking about actual pitchers here and what we think their outlook is going to look like for DFS purposes today. And it's an interesting slate, Neil, because we don't really have a lot of chalk at pitcher. Corbin Burnes has come up a little bit earlier in the day when I was doing content. He was 25% owned. It's come up a little bit now to where he's 31.7% owned. But we only have 2 pitchers on the entire slate projected for north of 20% ownership. It's Corbin Burnes at 31.7. It's Zach Allen at 24.6. So talking about these 2 chalk pitchers between Burnes and Gallen, do you have a preference between the 2 relative to what their ownership is?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clearly Gallen for me, coming in at lower ownership, 25% projected ownership with a 17% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So lower ownership, higher odds of being a top 2 pitcher. He is more expensive than Corbin Burnes. So obviously that is a factor in why he's getting less ownership than Corbin Burnes. But yeah, I say that it's clear, but it's not really like, it's not a clear and obvious one. Like the matchup is probably a little bit better for Burnes versus Cincinnati as opposed to versus Pittsburgh, but both not really imposing matchups. I guess a slight lean to me for Gallen over Burnes due to the higher top 2 pitcher odds at lower ownership. 6,000 more expensive, so kind of makes sense. But I still think that if I were playing one lineup, it would be Zach Gallen in there before Corbin Burnes. How about you?
Yeah, I'm getting to more of Gallen as well. A couple things working in his favor. Number 1, he's lesser owned. Number 2, he's got better top 2 pitcher odds for us. Number 3, he's been better than Corbin Burnes this year. Number 4, better matchup. Zach Gallen is going to be pitching against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Corbin Burnes is pitching against the Cincinnati Reds team that I think we are recognizing now as a force, right? Because a month ago, 2 months ago, The Reds were probably not entirely on our radar. They call up Ellie De La Cruz. He ends up being an electric player, and the Reds have been on a run. They're towards the top of all of the standings in the National League now, and I think that we all recognize that as a fairly difficult matchup for pitchers. So I'm going to be leaning towards Zach Allen. I think he's the better player. We're getting a little bit of an ownership discount. And at least in my last run of the Sims tool, which, by the way, if you guys want to sign up for, there is a link below. Zach Allen ended up coming up as my most rostered pitcher on the entire slate. Now I have to rerun because I didn't have the Nationals lineup then, and some other lineups and ownership update has come out. But I do feel that at the very least, Gallen's going to be one of my more rostered pitchers on the entire slate. And like I said, tricky pitching slate. And the field is kind of bearing that out as well, because there's no pitcher that's picking up all that much ownership. You got these two guys over 20% on DraftKings, and that's kind of it. We'll talk about the FanDuel pitching options as well on the high end, where we have Corbin Burnes projected for 22% ownership, Gallen at 14. Once again, just based on what we just talked about, it's all the same thing. I prefer Gallen for the slightly higher price point with the lesser ownership on FanDuel, just the same as I do on DraftKings. But if we talk through these next set of pitchers, Neil, there are a bunch of guys in the teens, right? We've got Andrew Abbott at 19% projected ownership, Dylan Cease at 19%, Savali at 19%, Luis Castillo at 19%, Hunter Brown at 18%. So as we're talking through these next group of guys, and I think this is probably the least concern we've ever had at ownership for pitcher on any single slate. Offense is going to be a different story. Offense, the ownership is pretty concentrated. Pitching, it's not, though. So of these pitchers, Abbott, Cease, Savali, Castillo, Hunter Brown, all fairly grouped tightly together in terms of projected ownership. Who are a couple of your favorite pitchers from this tier of ownership?
Yeah, it would probably be Hunter Brown. Just looking at the top pitchers, we have Hunter Brown, second overall in top two pitcher odds at 17% chance of being a top two pitcher, 18% ownership. So his ownership is the lowest of the group, and his top two pitcher odds are the highest of all the players you just mentioned. So pretty clearly Hunter Brown, number one for me using the top pitchers tool. Still not like a great matchup with Seattle, but not a terrible one either. So it'd probably be Hunter Brown, number one of that group for me, followed by, this is where it gets a little bit tougher for me. Dylan Cease has that low price tag of 8,500. Might be Dylan Cease number two, just due to the price tag there. Rodon at 9,100, getting 9% ownership. So he does have quite a big ownership discount. So maybe it'd be Rodon number three. And then I'd probably just go up to Castillo and Abbott 4 and 5. Luis Castillo, it's just such a tough matchup. Like I want it to be Luis Castillo, but the matchup is, I think, the toughest of the group for Castillo. So yeah, it'd probably be Hunter Brown number one, followed by Cease, Rodon, Castillo, Abbott, I think is how I see it. How about you?
Yeah, so for me, the pitcher that I'm getting the second most of behind Zach Allen is Dylan Cease. And, there's been concerns with his overall performance this year. It's not terrible, but it's worse than the pitcher we saw last year. He doesn't have the best matchup in the world either against the St. Louis Cardinals. But when Dylan Cease is on, he has great strikeout stuff, and he has immense upside. So we do have him with a 4.1 ERA this year, a 4.22 expected ERA, but he's still shown an ability to generate strikeouts in an elite clip, 27.4%. And also, I want to check his splits because I do believe he's been better lately. And let me see if that's actually true or if my memory is incorrect, which happens from time to time, Neil. Sometimes you remember things incorrectly.
Occasionally.
So he only made one start in July so far. So let's take that out of it and look at his numbers March, April, May, June. So March and April, he had a 26.2% K rate, May 22.1%, June 36.8%. That's the Dylan Cease that we know from previous years. His FIP, 4.02 in March and April, 4.77 in May, 2.77 in June. I think there's a chance that maybe he wasn't in shape to start the year. Maybe he didn't get enough work in at spring training, perhaps something like that, because it does seem like if you look at his numbers, there's been a pretty substantial improvement over the last month or so. So with that in mind, I do like taking shots here on Dylan Cease. I'm going to be overweight to him at a fairly low ownership. Based on the price point where he's owned, I really do think that there's an upside here. He's risky, but like he compared to some of the other options here, and I do think that him relative to like a, Luis Castillo or Carlos Rodon, I think there's a little bit more upside in Dylan Cease. And then also you got the cheaper price point, 8,500. So it is going to be Cease for me.
Okay, and you like Cease ahead of Hunter Brown as well?
Yeah, although with that said, Hunter Brown is another pitcher who so I've got my lineups running through the Sims again, so I'm not exactly sure where it's going to line up, but the last run I had Gallen as my most rostered pitcher. Cease was my second most rostered, and Hunter Brown was my third most.
Okay. Yeah, so we're kind of coming in about the same there, sounds like.
And then are any of these pitchers that you dislike? And we won't even, I guess we could bring ownership into this, but of any of the pitchers that are priced 8,500 or higher, right? So we'll talk about Dylan Cease. This will be Carlos Rodon, Luis Castillo, Andrew Abbott, Corbin Burns. Any of these pitchers that are picking up, like 10% or more of ownership that you don't like today?
I mean, do we have concerns about Carlos Rodon's pitch count? I had not seen this.
I bet him under 6.5 strikeouts as soon as the line opened this morning. He pitched 3 innings in his last rehab start. I'm very concerned he's only going to go to like 3 or 4 innings today. I think the closest comp that I have is, you remember when Scooball, now I'm still very tilted over Scooball the other day, where Scooball, remember, I was not on him because I was concerned about his pitches.
Yep.
Do you remember the results of that game?
I do not remember. I don't remember how I played it either. I remember thinking about playing Scooball. I think that was actually on Tuesday, the last show that you and I did together. We were talking about Scooball, but I don't remember how he did.
He pitched 4 innings and pitched 4 perfect innings. He got called out of the game. So he scores decently. He scores 20 fantasy points in that start,
right,
only because he was actually perfect before he pitched 4 innings and came out. Those starts are just not going to happen all that often. Like where you get these guys, they're coming off the injured list. They made a rehab start. Teams are trying to be careful with them. They pitch 3 or 4 innings. Yeah, cool. There's a chance they go absolutely perfect and they're flawless in those few innings, but there's so little margin for error for a pitcher to have a decent game if they're going to be held to like 3, 4, 5 innings.
Yeah, and I would say so Sotek says, actually, now I'm thinking about it, on FanDuel I might go with Rodon. I would do the opposite. Like on FanDuel, if you don't think there's any way he gets to 6 innings, I would just not even put him in your player pool. Unless you think that he could pitch, more. If you think he can get through 6 innings, then sure, play him. But yeah, I think it's probably Rodon is the one that I'm not going to be playing here, just because you kind of need the innings. Like if you don't have the upside to play 6, 7 innings, even on DraftKings at 9,100, I'm probably not going to get there. I don't know. Castillo has a tough matchup, but he is, still a talented enough pitcher that I'm going to say that you can play Castillo despite the tough matchup. There's nobody else from this group that I would say is like a bad play. They all look fine. They're all a little bit overowned relative to their odds of being a top 2 pitcher, but that's kind of what you see at the top generally with pitching. So yeah, there's nobody that I would say is like a, big fade for me of the expensive pitchers outside of Rodon. How about you?
Yeah, Rodon's going to be the fade for me. Just like I said, the pitch count issues, that's something I'm not all that interested in. I think that there's a way higher chance that he busts than he reaches what his ceiling could be. He's also fairly expensive. And yeah, is 9% projected ownership a lot? No, it's not. But it's kind of substantial for a slate of this size where no pitcher's all that popular. It's just easy for me to get away from him. So no Carlos Rodon for me. Same goes for DraftKings and FanDuel. Don't really have any interest there. If we're looking at low-owned pitchers, are there any low-owned pitchers? And we'll still keep this in the high end. We'll talk about punt pitchers afterwards. Are there any pitchers that are projected for less than 10% ownership that are priced above 8K that you're going to be backing today?
And we've got Yu Darvish coming in at 3% ownership with a 9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. That's really enticing to me. And the Mets, they're a team that I still think of as being good, but they haven't always been great this year. So that's kind of enticing to me. 3% ownership with a 9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Jordan Montgomery coming in at 2% ownership with a 7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Kind of a lot of these like mid-range guys are coming in pretty low owned with, relatively high odds of being a top 2 pitcher. Griffin Canning, I don't know that I love playing against the Dodgers. He probably is not going to make it in my player pool, but 0.5% ownership with a 6.4% chance of being a top 2 pitcher is at least sort of interesting. Yeah, I would say Darvish is probably number 1 for me of the low owned, under 10% owned guys, followed by, Gonsolin's only getting 6%. It'd probably be Darvish number 1, followed by Montgomery, followed by Gonsolin, and then finally Verlander, probably 4th of that group. How about you?
Yeah, I think Verlander's my favorite. So looking at Verlander's numbers for the year, they've been pretty terrible. The matchup also isn't ideal. He's on the road against the San Diego Padres, but we're going to kind of have these concerns about a lot of pitchers. The pitchers are either bad or they're decent pitchers in really good matchups, or sorry, in really bad matchups. Or it's the case of Verlander where he's an underwhelming pitcher this year who's also in a tough matchup. But signs of life lately for Verlander, if you look at some of his recent outings, last time out, 7 innings, no earned runs, 6 strikeouts. Start before that against the Brewers, 5 innings, 0 earned runs, 5 strikeouts. He had a matchup on the road against Houston where he scuffled a little bit, 7 innings, gave up 4 runs, 5 strikeouts. And the start before that, pitched against the Yankees, 6 innings, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts. So overall, his last 4 starts, he's looked better. His strikeouts have come up a little bit. He's walking less guys. Most importantly, he isn't giving up a million home runs. I think it was something like his first 7 starts of the season. He'd allowed 7 homers. Now he's only allowed 1 homer over his last 4 starts. So there's signs of improvement for Verlander. And also you can make a case when it comes to Justin Verlander, 40 years old. Maybe it takes him a little bit longer to really get his arms stretched out for the season. And he got hurt in spring training, right? So he gets hurt. He misses spring training. He gets thrown right back into the fray by the Mets, struggles right out of the bat, and just kind of had to work through those struggles. And so, maybe it took him a month and a half to get going. I wouldn't be playing him if he had any substantial ownership, but at really low ownership and a depressed price point, I could at least talk myself into getting some exposure to Verlander and hoping that he's going to start to bounce back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the reasoning totally makes sense there. It's just totally an ownership play of like, if you were getting ownership, you wouldn't play it, but if he's not getting ownership, and the top hitters tool bears that out, at least to some extent. As I said, we've got 8% chance of Verlander being a top 2 pitcher at 3.6% ownership. So does look good there. And it sounds like you're even a little bit more optimistic, or like maybe you see it as slightly better odds based on the recent form, which I think is reasonable also. So yeah, it makes sense.
And now let's start to talk about some of the cheap pitching where nobody's really all that popular on the cheap end. The most popular one is Aaron Savali. And it's not because anybody, I think, is going to sit here and be like, boy, Savali is the greatest pitcher in the world. It's because you have 2 teams who, when you have a pitcher going up against them, these offenses in the Oakland A's and then also the Kansas City Royals have been so terrible this year that any pitcher could find success against them at any given point. So Savali, not because of his own merits, but because of how bad his competition is, at $7,700, he is the most popular cheap play that we have at pitching over on DraftKings. So is 7,700 Aaron Savali, is he your favorite SP2 option, or is there somebody else you like better relative to ownership?
So I'm trying to figure out what Cody Bradford's deal is. Is he just an opener? Like he looks incredible in the top pitchers tool, which is why like he's standing out to me. But I'm looking at trying to kind of just get a feel for, does he have any chance of pitching like enough to get a win? And I guess I have the impression that he doesn't.
Yeah, so we'll walk through Cody Bradford right now. And he's an interesting case because we did see him 2 outings ago, went out and pitched 4 1/3 innings, had 8 strikeouts in that start. And then last game, he actually came out of the bullpen and pitched 2 1/3 innings. I do think it's reasonable to expect like 5 innings out of him because he's made 4 starts this year. In those starts, he's gone 5 innings, 4 1/3 innings, 4 1/3 innings. So relative to his price point, he actually is a pitcher that I like quite a bit as a punt. Earlier in the day, if you guys watched my video I posted to Twitter, he actually was my most rostered video at that point in time on DraftKings. But since then, we've had some ownership updates. We've had projection updates. And that ultimately has meant that I've gotten to less of Bradford. But I think that he's a perfectly viable, cheap punt play with minimal ownership, considering also he's a decent matchup against the Nationals. And there aren't that many places to go to for a punt.
Yeah, so I to answer your question, if you think there's some chance that he could get to 5 innings, which yeah, I think that makes sense that he could probably not go in 7 innings, but certainly 5 within at the min 4,000. Like he's probably my favorite SP2. I mean, you asked me who's my favorite SP2, it would probably be Cody Bradford. Just that's he doesn't need that much to pay off that 4,000 price tag. And if he can go 5 innings against the Nationals, yeah, I love the spot there. We have him with a 37% chance of being a top 2 point per dollar pitcher, which is very, very high. And he's only 6% ownership. So yeah, I think I'm with you on Bradford as somebody that I have interest in. Outside of Bradford, yeah, I think it would be, you asked me if it would be Aaron Savali. It probably would be Aaron Savali. Nice matchup with Kansas City, getting 19% ownership. So the field is there, but a 10% chance of being a top 2 pitcher overall looks pretty nice for Savali. Trying to see if there's anybody else who's even in that conversation. Stripling, I guess, gets Colorado outside of Coors in San Francisco. Like, that's not a bad spot for Ross Stripling, coming in at less than 1% ownership with a 17% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher, 6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher overall. He would have to be in that conversation as well. But yeah, probably if I had to rank them, my 3 favorite value pitchers, if like under 8,000 pitchers, it would probably be Bradford, followed by Stripling, followed by Savali. I think is probably the way I would order that.
Yeah, no, I don't have any issues with that. For me, I'm not playing them any of the cheap guys, right?
Okay.
Like, by the way, I'm not playing that much of any pitcher. Like, there's no pitcher I have in more than 30% of my lineups right now. In fact, let's see. How many pitchers do I even have in more than 20% of my lineups? Cease and Gallen, and that's it. Those are the only 2 pitchers I even have more than 20% of. So the pitcher I'm getting the most of on the cheap end is Bradford, and that's with him in 16% of my lineups right now. Like, I am really mixing and matching some of these contrarian pitching options today because it's hard to feel confident in any of them. So I'm definitely going to be spraying and praying at pitching. And then when we talk about offense in a little bit, I'm a little bit more concentrated there. Is there anything else you want to talk about from pitching from a DraftKings perspective? If not, we'll look at the top pitchers tool for FanDuel, and then we'll build some lineups in the lineup generator.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll throw out that my Twins do have Bailey Ober on the mound. He does have an 11% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Just one more name that we haven't mentioned from that top end of the group. Like, he looks okay. 13% ownership, 11% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. I think one more pitcher that you can consider playing, but I think that we've talked about all of the most interesting pitchers on the slate.
And let's address a question that we got in Discord from Einsteinium. Einsteinium says that we know that the Colorado Rockies are terrible away from home. Absolutely true. They're also terrible against right-handed pitching. So his question is, why is Ross Stripling not getting more consideration? Is he that bad? So, yes, that is part of it. He has a 6.51 ERA this year, a 6.91 expected ERA, and he's generating no strikeouts. He is actually one of the least valuable players we have in baseball this year. He has only produced, well, actually, I wouldn't even say only, because it's negative 0.4 wins above replacement he's produced. So very poor. So part of it is, yes, Einsteinium, Ross Stripling is that bad. Here's the other part of it too. He's been in and out of the bullpen in the starting rotation as of late. So his most recent appearances are 2 innings, 3 innings, 3 1/3 inning, 3 1/3 inning. I don't think we could reasonably expect too much more than 3 innings out of Ross Stripling.
All right. And I just mentioned him as one of the SP2s that I would consider playing. Maybe it's not a good idea. I did not realize how bad he had been this year. Last year he had an ERA at 3. Like, he wasn't nearly as bad last year as he has been this year, but that is concerning. But yeah, I mean, it's a great matchup. But if you don't think that he has the upside to pitch more than 3 or 4 innings, like, I'm not playing him. Like, that's to me, that's just a non-starter. So yeah, maybe throw that one out.
Yeah. So and I mean, if somebody, for whatever, you have a hunch that he might pitch 5 or 6 innings, go for it.
Yeah.
It's a good matchup. He's in a pitcher-friendly park. It's just hard for me to think that's going to be the case. But to answer the question from Einsteinium in chat, the main reason that Stripling isn't projected for ownership today is because it's hard to project him to go more than 3 or 4 innings based on the fact that, let's see, how long has it been since he pitched more than that? Yeah, so the last time that Ross Stripling made it through 4 innings was he pitched 5 innings May 7th. So it's been 2 months to the day since he pitched more than 3 1/3 innings.
Is it just because he's been pitching bad, though? I mean, he's been coming out of the bullpen, so he wouldn't expect it. His
last start, he pitched 2 scoreless innings and came out.
Yeah. All right. That's not a good sign.
And that was 5 days ago. His outing before that was 3 innings to give up 1 run.
Right. Yeah, not very promising.
Looking through some of his other outings, it is, I mean, to your point, it's probably part of it. Maybe he's been so bad that he's not stretched out. Like, he just comes out of every game in the 2nd or 3rd inning, and then it's like, oh shit, he's pitching decently, and he's like, yeah, but I'm exhausted. I've never pitched. I've never
perfect game going through 3
before. Yeah.
Could be rough.
But yeah, I mean, he just pitched 2 scoreless innings in a start and came out. So it's kind of hard for me to think he's going to go all that deep into games. If you guys have any other questions in Discord, hit me up. Looks like we've hit on all of them for now. But let's also look at FanDuel, Neil, and talk about some of the pitchers we have here. We did mention that Zach Gallen is somebody who stands out a bunch. When I was running lineups on FanDuel, he was the pitcher I got to the most. Are there any cheap pitchers that you like for FanDuel purposes? Because the pricing is way different here. Like Dylan Cease is $9,900. Bailey Ober is $9,800. Savali is actually $8,800 on FanDuel. So we don't really have that many cheap guys to look at. Are there any ones here that you'd be considering, or is it just like, hey, let's pay up for Zach Gallen and call it a night?
What do you call it cheap? I mean, not really. Like what I consider cheap is like 8,000 or less on FanDuel, and Tony Gonsolin, probably the only pitcher that I really want to strongly consider for 8,000 or less on FanDuel. I mean, if you think Cody Bradford could get through 6 innings, maybe at 5,500, I would consider him. Maybe would you consider, if you think that his ceiling is 5 innings, would you still consider playing Cody Bradford on FanDuel at 5,500?
Nah, it's just unnecessary for FanDuel. The other thing too is FanDuel, the pricing is so broken that you could generally kind of fit in whoever the hell you want anyway.
True.
And there's always going to be like a handful of weird teams. Like we had that Toronto Blue Jays game a couple weeks ago where they had the highest team total in the entire slate. And there's only one hitter in the lineup priced above 3,000 there. So there's just always these scenarios where it's easy to find salary savings on FanDuel. My inclination here, just pay up for pitching. And then I think that's the best way to go on FanDuel. You can go cheapish with the hitters and then mix in 1 or 2 one-offs that are super cheap on FanDuel. And that just makes it easy to cover.
Yeah, I think that is reasonable. I was trying to find somebody good. If I were playing anybody 8,000 or less, it would be Tony Gonsolin, who is at the 8,000. But I think I agree with you. Like, just all of the best pitchers on the top pitcher stool are all above. Like they're kind of pricey pitchers. So I think it makes sense to just pay up a little bit.
And now we got a follow-up from Gang Green, who says, what do we think of a San Francisco stack today? Well, let's see if this was a team. Oh, I think actually we might need an ownership update on San Francisco because I think they put out kind of a weird lineup. Let me refresh this and see. So we don't usually see San Francisco do this. So this is a team that typically what they do is if they are in a matchup against a right-hand pitcher, they throw in a lot of lefties like Jock Peterson, Mike Yastrzemski, Michael Conforto, and then we see them pinch hit a lot once pitchers start to come out of the game. Today, Austin Gomber is on the mound, and they still started a bunch of their lefties who typically platoon. And we did get an ownership update, so I can rerun my lineups in a second. But Michael Conforto is starting against the lefty today. Lamont Wade Jr. starting against the lefty. Brandon Crawford starting against the lefty. Now, that's all that weird because he's in there for defense a lot. But as for the Giants, like if you got to a stack or 2 of them, it's not the end of the world. I do think there's hitters like Austin Slater and Wilmer Flores that are cheap that make sense as one-offs. But I don't really love 5-man Giant stacks, particularly when the team is entirely healthy, because how many times, it's probably happened to all of us, you have a Giant stack, they're crushing, they're going really well. It's like, oh, cool, they started pinch hitting their guys in the 4th inning, and all of my lineups that were the Giants are getting fucked by pinch hits. So I like them as one-offs. It's generally hard for me to get to a Giants 5-man stack when the team is totally healthy, which is the case now. It wasn't the case a couple of weeks ago. They have a lot of pinch hitting options now, though.
But wouldn't you say that there is reduced risk though if they're already starting lefty on lefty, like that they're probably not going to, they're less inclined to take them out, if they switch to another lefty because they're already starting against
some of them. But still, like my favorite hitters in the Giants lineup for today are Wilmer Flores, Austin Slater. These are 2 guys that are both like fairly likely to get pinch hit for at some point.
Okay. Even with okay. Yeah.
If you ask me actually to handicap it and say, what are my expected odds of Austin Slater getting pinch hit for today? I would say like 80%.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's incredibly high.
Okay. So that makes it tough, man. It's like interesting because they are facing Austin Gomber and, even outside of Coors, like it's certainly not an imposing matchup for them. But
so for reference, his last 2 starts, which were both against left-handed pitchers, he got 1 at bat, which was partially because he walked 2 times, and then had 2 at bats.
Okay.
It's just hard to get, really invested in a Giant stack when it's like, oh, cool, the offense is going, they're putting up offense. Oh, but here comes a right-hand pitcher, and now half the lineup gets subbed out.
Right. Yeah. It would make me, in some ways, like the ones who are going against the same-handed pitcher, I would feel more confident in them. And I'd, as usual, like you feel more less confident in starting righties against lefties for the Giants when there's risk of them being subbed out for when a right-handed pitcher comes in. Like, but yeah, ultimately probably not playing the Giants, so not a huge concern anyway.
Super chat time. We actually got a few super chats that came in here. One is from Smoke Show. He wants to know what our favorite low-owned DK stack is, and he can't do the public pool at sporting. By the way, are some of these from last show, Jordan? Any of these other ones? Okay, cool. So Smoke Show, we can answer this anyway. He wants to know what our favorite low-owned DK stack is. Neil, if you were just picking one stack as a low-owned stack and let's say sub 4% owned today, which is honestly most teams on the slate because you got so much ownership concentrated to the Boston Red Sox and the Texas Rangers. If you're playing one stack to give out at less than 4% ownership, what would be the stack that you would tell people to play?
Good question. Probably the. Oh no, they're not. I mean, just using the top stacks, it would have to be the Angels here against Tony Gonsolin. Not the best matchup in the world, but also Tony Gonsolin's not like an ace. We've got the Angels coming in at 1% ownership with a 4% chance of being the top stack on the board. They have no Trout, right? Trout is out, isn't he? So
yeah, probably for the majority of the rest of the season with a broken wrist.
That's right. So that's, man, I don't love the low owned stacks, if I'm being honest. I guess, nah. I was going to say Colorado is like sort of interesting after talking about how bad Ross Stripling has been, but it is in San Francisco. It's still sort of tough to click that button. Yeah, I don't feel particularly good about any of the low owned stacks, if I'm being honest, but it would probably still be the Troutless Angels. Do you see anybody standing out to you that you like?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I kind of gave you, I cheated, which
You
is one of the things I could do.
Difficult.
One of the things I could do when I'm hosting is I could cheat a little bit.
Yeah.
And I kind of look at the reason I gave that specific ownership line is because there was a team I liked just below it. And then what happens? I go check the ownership update and the team I liked is now 4.1% on instead of the sub 4. Yeah. I'm going with them anyway. The Arizona Diamondbacks are actually my third most rostered stack right now. So I get to the Red Sox and I get to the Rangers as the two most rostered. It's really hard to get away from these teams today, especially if you're going to be kind of contrarian at pitching. You don't have to worry as much about the offense chalk, but there's so much ownership going to the Rangers and the Red Sox. Every stack behind them is somewhat contrarian. And the team I get the next most of is the Diamondbacks. I have them about 10% of my lineups. They're project for 4% ownership. That is my favorite low-owned stack of the day.
You kind of did me dirty there. You set that line and I was like, that's right below both the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. Like any team that like looks pretty good in the top stacks tool. Yeah, it's you did me dirty, but I guess I would have also gone with the D-backs if they were below 4.
All right, no, that's fair. We could both say the Diamondbacks then, and that could be our answer to the question. Chris Williams has left us a super chat. He says, just wanted to say thanks for all your hard work. Thanks for tuning in, Chris. Hope everything's going well over at the Apple store there. Yeah, that's our Apple guy. It's our Apple guy, Chris. I got a lot of Apple products here. Ace of Spade. It's been a minute since Ace of Spade was around. He wants to know about DK tiers. Neil, why don't you do the normal pull-up? I'm not sure if Josh actually put out his tiers projections or not today. I think I remember liking it earlier in the day, but a lot of the tweets I see and like kind of blend together for me. So I have lineups built out for tiers here because I saw Ace of Spade super chat. If Josh has it there, we could do our back and forth and see what we like. If not, I'll just read off what I got the most exposure to.
I don't believe he has it today.
I think he did it really early.
All right, I'm going to keep looking.
I could be misremembering, though. It might have been yesterday that he did it really
early.
He
did his little Hitler video this morning. Hitler. He's got the like he does the prize picks thing where it's like coming out of his mouth, but like it stops right here. And like he looks like he's got a little...
that's not... Yeah, I don't know. I think it's unfair to call that doing the Hitler thing.
You think so? I don't know.
Yeah. No. Hitler was different. He wasn't making prize picks videos or anything.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
Yeah. Different. And then by the way, as Norm Macdonald used to say, the more you read about Hitler, the less you like him. The guy was a real jerk. So if we go ahead and look at Ace of Spades DK tiers questions, I have lineups built out here for DK tiers. So I'll go and pull these up. So for me in tiers, one thing that's really nice for today is we talked about the Yankees, the Red Sox being stacks that we're like getting to. You know what's cool? A lot of Yankees and Rangers, I should say, in the top stack in the tiers here. So tier 1, Corey Seager of the Texas Rangers. He's the one I get to the most. Tier 2, you're gonna like this one, Neil. Byron Buxton in tier 2.
Always a fan.
Tier 4. So in tier 4 for me, it is Nolan Arenado actually that pop up the most, but Kyle Tucker not far behind him. I kind of put them as like one and A in that category. Tier 3, Devers. Tier 5, Duvall, and then tier 6, Nate Lowe. So we've got I keep saying the Yankees. We've got Rangers and Red Sox stacks that we can make in tier 1, 4, 5, 6, and then tier 2 and 3, more of one-offs. And I do think Byron Buxton and Luis Robert are the 2 best options in tier 2. Tier 3, 2 best options, Nolan Arenado and Kyle Tucker. So Ace of Spade, thank you for the super chat. I hope that helps you build out your lineups. And now, Neil, we could go back to contrarian stacks because Mr. CoolCam97 wants to know what our favorite contrarian stack is for FanDuel. And for this one, Neil, I'll let you answer any team that's below 5% owned.
I'm excited to see what the ownership numbers are. It's going to be like a bunch that are at 5.1. All right, below 5%. I mean, we can do the same answer as last time. Arizona looks pretty good. They have the top odds of teams that are below 5% ownership. Let me see if there's anybody else that looks a little bit more interesting on FanDuel, though. Here I would say, well, San Francisco's coming in at 3.5%, but with the pinch hit risk, I guess. I still don't feel all that confident in it. People are mentioning my Twins as a team that you can stack. They are coming in at under 5% ownership. Yeah, I'll go with my Twins. 4.8% ownership, 6% chance of being a top value stack, 4.9% chance of being the top stack overall. So slight positive leverage on the Twins. We know that they've got that pop. Yeah, give me the Twins.
Got some questions coming in Discord from my guy, Eric Johnson. Lippy back in the Discord channel. He wants to know, first, quick question. Tell me about the Brewers. Talk me off this regression for Abbott. I do not, but so a couple of things. Number one, I think Abbott's very good, but not quite as good as he's pitched to this point. I think regression is coming. Did I really get to the Brewers today, though? So a couple of things here. It's a big enough slate where it's not like I feel like I have to even if I think Abbott's going to regress a little bit, he's still a better option or a better pitcher than a majority of the options on the slate. And the Brewers offense isn't great. So I'm not really stacking the Brewers today. I understand the reasoning, though. It's just not really the spot that, like, I hope we get one more decent start out of Abbott, and then on a smaller slate or a slate where there's more leverage to be at, I could stack against him next time. For today, though, I'm not really stacking up the Brewers. Then he also said on DK, Gomber over Bradford. I'd rather play Bradford. It's a fairly tough matchup for Gomber just because he's going to be facing a lot of righties in that Giants lineup. And then Heflove says 5-man Ranger stack different enough in the 121 single entry. I assume like half the field is going to stack the Red Sox and like half the field is going to stack the Rangers in that tournament.
Yeah.
I'm about to build out my lineups. Whatever my top projected lineup in our Sims tool is that is not a Rangers or Red Sox stack is what I'm going to play in my single entry today.
Seems like
that's how I'm going to go about it.
Yeah. Top in terms of projection.
Sorry, what was that?
You say your top, do you mean like your top lineup in terms of projection or like by what metric?
My top lineup in terms of ROI projection. Okay. Whatever my top ROI projected lineup is that isn't a Rangers or Red Sox stack is what I'm going to play in single entry today.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. Using the Sims makes it easy.
That's how I'm going to be going about it. Now let's go ahead and build out some lineups in the lineup builder for the folks watching, Neil. And first, want to let you all know that if you sign up for the lineup builder using the link that we have below, get access to it for less than $5. And this is super, super useful. In fact, we got a super chat yesterday from Atlanta Bird fan who said, big thanks to Josh, Adam, Loughy, Neil, Greg. Eric laughs, probably because he forgot about him. And then there's just like, oh, right, there's that goof Eric who works here as well. Thanked us all for our continued work and helping him improve his lineup process. Also said that he took down the $3 Mega Mini Max last night, thanks to our insight and the lineup generator's projection. So first place in the Mega Mini Max, which I think was $7,500 last night. So that less than $5 he got for signing up for the lineup generator surely paid off for Atlanta Birds fan. If you guys want to be cool like him and use our lineup generator, which is the easiest tool we have for new DFS players, like I said, sign up using that link below. Access for less than $5. That a lot of people have had big wins as of late using the lineup generator. and have messaged us about it. So one way that I also think it could help you guys using the lineup generator is if you're watching the show right now, watching us go through it, or if you're building the lineup or if you're building lineups in the lineup generator and want to hand build some, look at the players that you're getting the most exposure to, and you could use that as a baseline for how you want to build out your lineups. But big slate, Jordan, as per usual, start with DraftKings and let's do balanced lineups.
I am, by the way, using it right now also for my own lineups.
Yeah, I'm doing one more run of the Sims with updated ownership and seeing what I get to. Probably be the last run that I do prior to lock here. Also, I should mention, if you guys want another cheap way to get access to all the tools we have here at Stokastic.com, one thing you could do is make it into the Hall of Fame. Play with the Stokastic avatar. If you have a win, at the Stokastic HOF on Twitter. The other thing you could do is sign up at BetMGM using the link we have below. Because when you sign up at BetMGM using our link, that also gets you 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. If you or anybody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. And oh my God, Neil, this appears to be a lot of Boston Red Sox, decent amount of Texas Rangers as well, but Boston overwhelmingly dominating our lineups. Does this surprise you?
It does not, in part because I've already done this exercise of going through the lineups, and I got to like 75% Jalen Duran or something. So yeah, I was getting a lot of Boston also. Jaron Duran, right? It's Jaron.
Yes.
Whatever it is, I got a lot of them, and I was getting a lot. Yeah, it was like across all of my top bats were all Sox bats.
Yeah, no, that's just the way it's going to go today. Like, and I know that they're projected for a lot of ownership. It's funny. So on FanDuel, I still expect that we're going to be getting to a good amount of Boston Red Sox. But actually, when I was running lineups earlier, I was overweight to Boston on DraftKings, underweight on FanDuel, because on FanDuel, they're getting projected for like 25% ownership. So I'm curious to see how much different this is going to look on FanDuel relative to DraftKings. Our most rostered pitchers here ended up being Hunter Brown and Corbin Burns, by the way. Scroll down a little bit more for us, Jordan, than Dylan Cease, who I like as a contrarian option. Some Bailey Ober there. There's some Zach Gallen. So spread out a pitcher. That's just going to be the name of the game today. I don't have any kind of issue with that. Anything else you're noticing here, Neil?
No, I mean, it's exactly what I was getting also. Just a ton of the Red Sox. They look really good in the top stacks tool. Not a huge surprise. Yeah, I guess Hunter Brown being the top owned pitcher, like at over 50%, Hunter Brown surprises me a little bit, but he does look good in the top pitchers tool, so not like a huge shock. Yeah, if I do my videos now, I often say, like, if I'm getting into this much of certain players, I'm probably going to go back and get rid of some of my Red Sox stacks and try to find some stacks of other teams instead. But it's just a matter of risk tolerance. Like, these are all individually, these are all going to be good long-term profitable lineups. It's just a matter of, like, I want to mitigate my risk a little bit, so I would probably go back and get rid of some of the Red Sox lineups, find some other stacks. But yeah, it's just kind of nitpicking because we know that these are all profitable lineups.
All right, Jordan, if you could go ahead and build out some FanDuel lineups. In the interim here, we got a super chat from Samson. He didn't leave us a question, just left us $20, and that was it. Samson, if you have a question for us, you don't have to leave another super chat. Just post it into the YouTube chat, and then I will answer it. But thank you for the super chat. If you just wanted to leave us some money and didn't have a question, we appreciate the support. And if anybody else wants a way to support the channel, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or check out our podcast network. Subscribe to it, leave us a 5-star review. All that stuff helps keep our content free. And for FanDuel purposes, also a ton of Red Sox. Look at that. We got Jaron Duran in 95% of our lineups. 95%. And then not as many other Red Sox popping up in the same kind of way, right? So we're getting to Devers is our second most rostered hitter, Kike Hernandez third. Then we got a bunch of Texas Rangers, but it is Duran who's by far our most rostered hitter here. But yeah, Red Sox, Rangers popping up a ton here on FanDuel. Anything else that you want to talk about here, Neil?
No, I mean, it's the same analysis that I gave last time. I would probably, if I got to, and we mentioned it before, like, if you see something like this where you're getting to 95% of one player and you don't want to have that much, you can go back and specify, like, I only want to get contrarian lineups for my next set. Like, you can go back, get rid of some of your Duran lineups, go back to the top left, and you can go back and start over with, saving some of your lineups, but then go back and find some contrarian lineups to add to it. And that's what I am doing right now, actually.
So let's go ahead and look at some of our favorite stacks of the day here. And we've already kind of talked through a lot of these over the course of the show, Neil, and I think a lot of people probably know by now. that the Red Sox and the Rangers are both rating out pretty well. Red Sox are going to be really popular. Rangers a little bit less so. If you're only stacking one of these teams, which would you pick?
Probably. Wait, am I on? Hang on one second. I think I'm on the FanDuel tab. So let me just check DraftKings, make sure I have it right. It would probably be Texas for me, coming in a little bit lower owned than Boston. Like they're way more expensive than Boston. So it's tough. Like it's not an easy call between the two of them. Boston does have a 13% chance of being the top value stack, whereas Texas only has a 2% chance of being the top value stack. I kind of want to change my answer because I'm getting so much of the Red Sox in the lineup generator, which is an indication that the Red Sox are generally going to be like, you can make a lot of plus EV stacks with the Red Sox given their price tag. So yeah, actually I'm gonna change my answer. It would be the Red Sox for me. That's who I am playing because I'm using the lineup generator. I'm playing tons of the Red Sox. So yeah, it'd probably be the Red Sox for me. How about you?
We're splitting hairs here. Like I said, in single entry, I wouldn't play either of them just because they're both so popular. I'm hoping that I get my lineups here finish running in a good amount of time so that I could be a little bit more selective about what it is that I end up getting to in my single entry. But like I said, my goal here is to ultimately in the next couple of minutes upload a set of lineups that's going to get me to a single entry stack outside of the Rangers or the Red Sox. I'm very about equally owned between them, but relative to ownership, I guess I'm a little bit higher on the Rangers because they are projected for quite a bit less ownership. So if I have comparable exposure to both the Rangers and the Red Sox, but the Rangers are 11.7% on, the Red Sox are 19.1, I'll give my answer as the Rangers here.
Yeah, that's fair.
Got not a super chat, Discord question from Lippy. So Eric Johnson once again wants to ask us, what are our thoughts on the Padres and Dodgers in the same lineup? So when it comes to the Dodgers, they actually do have the third highest top stack odds for us. Matchup against Griffin Canning isn't ideal necessarily, but I mean, you look at this overall slate, and so you've got now 19% projected ownership going to the Red Sox, about 12% to the Rangers. Now we've got 6% going to the Oakland A's, and there's not another single team that's projected for more than 5% ownership. So once you get past those two top teams, ownership is pretty flat. Dodgers, Padres, do you like those stacks? Do you dislike them? Do you have any issues with them being together?
I don't have any issue with them being together. I mean, you're going to be playing a very low owned stack with them together. But I mean, yeah, I've got no issue with it. I guess, how expensive are these teams? The Dodgers are fairly expensive. Looks like San Diego relatively expensive as well. So I guess you probably have to play like less expensive pitchers if you're going to those stacks. But if you can make it work with pitchers you like, I have no issue with it.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what, like, it seems like there's a lot of opportunity cost at pitcher.
It does. It feels like you're going to be like playing those two expensive stacks. Like you can, but like there are plenty of low own. I mean, they are two like good teams that certainly have the ability to blow up. So I guess I would just be curious to know what the pitchers are, because it really depends if you're really having to like go down to play your I already forgot his name. The Giants pitcher today. If you're Ross Stripling, if you're forced to play Ross Stripling and Bradford as your pitchers, I'd be less inclined to do it. But if you can play decent pitchers, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'd be curious, Eric, what your pitchers are. Like if the pitching options are just the most abysmal looking thing ever, where it's, hey, I'm playing this middle reliever from the who gives a shit Wizards, or like weird shit we've never heard of before. It's like, hey, I found a way to get this AA pitcher in my lineup today who costs $4,000 the flat min, whatever it might be. It sounds to me that there might be a little bit too much opportunity cost. By the way, it looks like Samson followed up. What did Samson say?
Said, I just joined and have started using the lineup generator. Both of you are great, and I wanted to thank both of you. Thank you, Samson.
Okay,
appreciate
he said that. And then
he said something else too.
Yes, he said, where was it? I thought he asked a question as well. Am I mistaken though? Samson, did he leave us a question? Just joined, like you said. And then, yeah, I haven't seen anything else. But anyway, we appreciate the super chat. Thank you for the kind words. Like Neil just said, just joined, have started using the lineup generator. Both of you are great and wanted to thank you both. Thank you very much. And thank you for not thanking Eric. We do appreciate all of those things coming together.
The most important thing.
Any really low owned stacks here that you're noticing popping up in any kind of meaningful way for you?
I was happy to see that I am getting some of my Twins in the lineup gen, or actually was getting some Twins lineups there. Not like super low owned, I don't think. Actually, I can take a look at what I am playing today. Looking through my lineups. I did, as I said, I got to a ton of the Red Sox, which I don't totally love. I got to some of the Guardians. What is the Guardians ownership today? They are 5.5%, so like not extremely low owned, but happy to play some Guardians against Daniel Lynch. I don't think that I got to any 1% teams with any kind of frequency. What do you think of people are talking about this in chat earlier? What do you think about playing the Reds against Corbin Burns and his 30% ownership?
Let's see. I have 2% Reds exposure. Like if you're playing a set of a bunch of lineups, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but it's hard for me to really advocate for it. And it's something I talk about on some of these slates a lot is, inherently these small slates are way different than big slates in terms of ownership because, Corbin Burns is somewhat popular, but it's not like he's 40 or 50% owned. And not only do you need the Reds to get to him, you need them to outscore all of the other teams on the slate. So my preference, you don't have to get leverage against Corbin Burns and be underweight to him. It's enough to just be underweight to him if you don't like him.
Sure. And unless you think that the Reds actually can put up a big score, which I don't know if they've been crushing the ball lately, maybe they can, but you certainly shouldn't be playing like low upside offenses just to get leverage.
Yeah, let me look through my lineups and see what else is standing out, if anything. And not anything else too notable. In terms of my stack exposures, I did end up getting to Cleveland, I think is a good lower owned stack to end up playing today. Your Minnesota Twins are another one. And nothing like too high. Like I'm not stacking against any of the chalk pitchers or anything like that.
Yeah, it sounds like we same thing. Those are the two that I was getting to that are like sort of low owned. The Twins and the Guardians both look pretty good. I got to a ton of the Red Sox. Looks like I have at least a secondary stack of the Giants in here.
Yeah, and I am also going to try to lower my exposure to, because I was getting to some of Rodon when I ran my lineups to the Sims. Not like significant, but he was in 8% of my lineups. And I actually do want to cut back on that a little bit because I am, like I said before, pretty concerned about the pitch count that he's going to potentially have. Anything else that we haven't talked about that you're noticing about your lineups? Do you want to make sure that people know prior to us getting to lock?
No, I think that we've talked about the teams that I'm really getting exposure to. I am actually getting a little bit more of the Giants than I thought I was. And did you say Austin Slater is the player that you have the most pinch hit concern for?
Yes, I think he's a very good one-off though.
Okay, because I'm getting to a bit of Austin Slater.
Yeah, I don't mind him as a one-off though.
I'm wondering if I should swap out. I got to some Carlos Rodon, and honestly, I wasn't looking closely at it because I didn't get to a ton, but I do have some Rodon, and now I'm wondering if I should be swapping off. And if you had to just swap off of Rodon in the DraftKings app, do you have an opinion on who you would do swap him to?
Let me see. If you had to just do like a 1v1 swap.
Yeah, and you can't swap up in salary on DraftKings within the app, which is kind of a bummer. Could be Corbin Burns, Yu Darvish.
I mean, by default, I think it just is Corbin Burns is the answer.
Yeah.
Let's see, I don't like that as an answer. But,
yeah.
Right, because I'm underweight to the field on Corbin Burns. But I would, all things being considered, I'd rather play Corbin Burns than Carlos Rodon.
Yeah, I think I probably would too. So I'm probably going to do it. Which it changes the entire, the composition of the lineup, having a chalky pitcher as opposed to a low-owned pitcher, but still probably worth making the switch.
Well, and it is fairly easy to do that. I wish that there was more flexibility to be able to go up in the global swapping over on DraftKings, but kind of is what it is. So one other thing that I want to ask you before we close it out, dong of the day, Neil. Who are you picking a homer today?
Oh, my favorite part of the day. I crushed the dong picks. All right, let me see.
Neil, crushing dong.
crush the dong. All right. Almost there. I do have I have a very complex algorithm that I look at to figure this out.
Yeah, you go to the top batters tool, you sort it by home run odds, and you go whoever's at the top. I know the game.
That is correct. And top of the board is Adolis Garcia, 32% chance of hitting a home run. I like those odds. I'm going to take Adolis Garcia as my home run pick.
All right, I'm going to make you do one other one, though.
Okay.
You're not allowed to pick anybody from the Red Sox or the Rangers.
Ooh, give me Byron Buxton, 24% chance of hitting a home run. I like the Twins as a stack today. I like Byron Buxton today. So yeah, that's easy call there for me.
All right, let me look through my final exposures. My lineups are uploaded and good to go now, which is always nice. My exposures. Who do I want a homer today that's also, who's going to benefit me to homer today that I also think is pretty realistic? Can't be a Red Sox. You know what's funny, Neil? Guess which hitter I got the most exposure to, who isn't on the Red Sox or the Rangers?
Byron Buxton.
It is Byron Buxton. Byron Buxton
Beautiful.
Is in 23% of my lineups. I won't go Buxton, though. I'm going to say Jose Ramirez. I like the Guardians as a lower owned stack. I'm well overweight to the field to them. They ended up being one of my biggest stands of the slate, is coming in overweight to the field. Well, I wouldn't say one of my biggest stands because I have them in like 10% of my lineups, but it is a team that I'm getting overweight to the field to in the Cleveland Guardians. I got a good amount of Jose Ramirez. He's my most rostered third baseman. That's my dong pick of the day. Jose Ramirez. He's going to hit a homer. By the way, also, he posted a picture of himself on social media with no shirt on. He's just a fat guy. He's just like a short, fat, dumpy guy.
I like how you say on social media. Is he on Blue Sky? Is he on Threads? Like we don't know anymore. Where is
I don't even
media?
know because I just saw a picture come up on my timeline of Jose Ramirez.
Okay.
Without his shirt on.
That's funny.
And I couldn't even tell which platform it was from anymore. It was from a platform. I know that.
I'm sure Jordan will send it to me.
That is going to do it for us today. No, Jordan will send you a picture of himself with his shirt off. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget about our podcast channel as well. If you ever want to listen to one of our strategy shows on the go, check out our podcast network, Stochastic Daily Fantasy. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have a great weekend. Good luck with your lineups. See you next week.